Oh, there's Paul, okay. Now we have a clerk.
Let they start back on.
Say what, oh, you're gonna, yeah, exactly, unless you step back outside. Misty and Marcy are both attending by Zoom.
Oh, they are, I didn't know.
Well, Misty had told us last week she would be attending by Zoom. And then Marcy wrote to us the other day and said, hey, I need to attend by Zoom, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah, I didn't mean to be late.
we're fine.
Doctor's appointment. And then I've got my schedule.
Misty and Marcy, are you guys both there?
Hello? I don't think,
Your guys' cameras off and your mics are off.
Oh,
Okay, can you hear me?
yes,
Yes, and Marcy?
I'm here.
okay.
Okay, and your guys' cameras are off. You guys wanna put your cameras on?
I'm camping, so just know that in advance.
Oh,
Uh,
okay, Marcy?
I just turned my camera on. I just turned my camera on, but it's not showing.
Okay, well then, how about this then?
Okay. You guys.
That's, so all I see is Marcy Hall.
Well,
And
they're up here, 'cause Marcy was the last one talking, if you go ahead and talk real quick. Misty, say something.
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
oh, okay, now she's got a picture.
But see how it's up here.
Oh, I
it's
see. Yeah,
Like
for
for
Marcy, yeah.
And then when Marcy talks, it will pop her up, but for some reason it's still showing Marcy's camera's off, so it just says her name when she talks.
Okay, all right.
They wanted to see your faces.
I wanted to see your faces, so it felt like you were really here, you know, instead of just a disembodied voice coming through a speaker. But if you guys really prefer not to be on camera, we can deal with that too. So.
I'm just
trying to
hiding in my
be-
car, so.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out the best way to go forward, so when you guys wanna talk, so that you both aren't talking at the same time, and how we can have some indication that one wants to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they do the raise your hand, you're gonna have to turn it back so you can see it and let us know.
Okay.
Okay. Cause I can't see it.
They can just, oh, we got Marcy's now cameras working, Misty, what happened to you?
Anyway, she's not working. Okay,
Okay.
all right, it
They're
is,
there.
okay, all right, it is 6:03, so let's go ahead
Guys,
and,
you see them both now?
yes,
Okay.
okay. Thank you, guys. You may not have wanted to have yourself on camera, but I wanted to actually see you. So,
If I have bandwidth issues, I will turn my camera off.
yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. That makes sense. Okay, I just want to bring up our SharePoint for the meeting, because I printed off most stuff for myself, but there's some things I did not print. That was a big packet. You printed everything off, that would have been a lot of paper. Yeah, I just printed off what I thought I needed. Okay, so, we will call the special meeting to order. It is July 11th, 2024 at 6 p.m. And, we are having a special meeting tonight before our work meeting. And the special meeting is just on two topics. And the first topic is to vote to approve or deny ordinance 2024-12, which is the ordinance that sets, that prohibits the development of large structures in residential zones. And the ordinance is, basically limits the size of homes to 4,800 square feet or 12% of the parcel Although I thought the planning commission had wanted to limit that to 4%, although I didn't understand why 4%. But I heard they wanted to limit it to 4%, but they did not. They just voted to deny this ordinance. But I thought they would have proposed 4% of the parcel.
15% is what I recall.
15, okay.
So Jean, there was the recommendation that came from the planning commission that Bronwyn forwarded to all of us, and that you were right, that did say 4%.
Yes, and I was surprised at the 4%. Because that seemed awfully low, but I never saw a reason why. But that is not what was, what ultimately came from the planning commission was a denial of this ordinance. But I did see something on like SharePoint or something where they were going to recommend 4%, then they did, right? Darlene?
4% was never a number,
Okay,
it was 15.
okay. I remember you guys, but I remember hearing 15, and then I remember seeing a written document that had 4, but it didn't pass, so it doesn't matter. And then there was a single septic tank with a maximum capacity of 1,500 and a single culinary water connection of 3/4 inch. And then there were some other amendments just really in this ordinance that were renumbering each of the 2 residential sections, the rural residential and the rural residential, because what was ultimately happening here is we were, the ordinance is proposing to add a section in the residential zone and a section in the rural residential zone that makes it necessary to renumber the subsequent sections of the ordinance. And then Crystal printed out for us the minutes from the planning commission's public hearing so that we could see the comments from the public at the public hearing.
And those are in SharePoint for you girls.
Yeah, for Marcy and Misty, Crystal put those minutes in SharePoint and we have printed copies in our folders, those of us that are here. So this public hearing was the second public hearing. There had been a first public hearing in May. Do you remember the date, Darlene? May 8th? There was a public hearing and in May, no one came. Then we had a meeting, a town council meeting in May, where we were going to, where I had on the agenda for us to vote whether to pull this ordinance from planning commission and town council to take over so that we could get this done in time. And at that town council meeting, many people thought we were voting on this ordinance. And so not understanding it was just a procedural vote that we were taking. And they came and sent us all many emails that we had gotten from the public that were giving us their thoughts on this. And then we had a second public hearing on June the 12th, and these are the comments from the second public hearing. So I basically all I've done here is give us a rundown of what the ordinance is about and where we stand with the public hearings and the comments that were received during the public hearing. So we need to vote on this and dispose of this ordinance so that we can move on to other issues in town. Now, one of the things I did post on SharePoint for the town council members to look at was the sections of the town code in Rockville and the sections of the town code in Springdale showing that they both towns limit the size of the homes. Rockville has a limitation of 4,000 square feet, no matter what residential zone the house is in. And their limitation of 4,000 square feet includes garages, patios, additional structures. Springdale's ordinances limit homes to 3,000 square feet, including garages and patios. However, if the home builder will agree to comply with Springdale's architectural design guidelines, they will let them go up to 5,000 square feet, again, including patios, garages, accessory dwelling structures, all of that. So our ordinance is proposing 4,800 square feet, and it does not include garages and patios or sheds or anything like that. So what we're proposing is actually, in my opinion, more generous and allows a bigger home than what you get further down Zion Canyon as you get closer to the park. So we're in this ballpark with Rockville and Springdale with what we're proposing. So what we are proposing, in my opinion, is not outside the realm of the North Florida Canyon. It's just something that hasn't happened in Virgin before, but it has happened elsewhere here in the canyon. So I just wanted to make that clear. So Paul, you had a spreadsheet there that you looked at that, you've done some, it looks like you've done some research on your own, so.
No, this is spreadsheet that Lauren Campbell sent us.
Oh, I did not see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he had sent that in one of his
Emails?
It was an email.
was an email
Okay,
prior, way when we're back at our one meeting when we were making procedural issue.
oh, the one in May where we.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so, or it was
Okay.
right after that.
Okay,
And
let's see, I had all of those were saved in a folder, in a May SharePoint folder. All of the, I thought they were all here. I don't see them, I know we had them saved somewhere. Anyway, go ahead, Paul.
no, I just pulled this out because I wanted to have his spreadsheet handy instead of trying to look through email, so I printed it out for myself.
Oh, okay,
You know,
so
no
what does it show?
well, it has his house average, his minimum reels size, large reel, and the second largest. And living square feet is, the largest is 5,000, the minimum is 2,250, the second largest is 4,600. Then it has a 2-car garage, subtotal, so I assume that's with the garage, yeah, we have those two together. And then he's got some different measurements with extra car garage, RV garage, minimum 25% living space, covered patio, overhangings, other options. He's got quite a few different
So was,
information there.
so was this when we still, was this, when we, in response to the temporary ordinance that limited homes to 3,500 square feet, including garages, or was this in response to this?
I cannot tell you.
Okay. Yes, Darby.
He had a conversation with me, and as a result of that conversation, I asked you to give me some ideas from your development, and that's
That's what this is.
So what's
Okay.
that was probably before.
That was
hearing.
before we sent
Your
it.
public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
So my question is, because the original ordinance had square footage at 3,500.
Uh-huh.
And then all of us said, well, that's way too low, but
Right.
let's see what the planning board comes up with. Where does the 48 come from?
That, I think, yes, Darlene,
That's the highest amount in that.
But but you guys came up with the 4,800 square feet. Okay, it came from planning.
So I think you did a lot of research on what's typical size of their houses in like desert gardens and
Mhm.
Rio de Zion and around town. And you didn't just come up with this out of the air. You
Yeah,
guys worked really hard at trying to come up with a number that fit the neighborhoods, if I recall.
yes.
And I can tell you, I looked online and, someone has told me what they considered the biggest houses in town, and I have my idea of what I consider the biggest houses in town, just to look around and see. Do we really have any homes in town that are even any bigger than this?
There's
That what we're
few of them.
proposing,
a few
and there's
desert
just-
gardens, I think,
there's
two,
four.
maybe.
There's two in Desert Gardens, one in Rio, and then the new home being built over here that hasn't finished yet.
And then there's that home up, that's up for sale, is that in Virgin Town?
No,
Limits
that I believe is.
outside of limits, yeah.
Okay, so in the town, we have 4 homes that are bigger than this. And all of them are fairly recent. They've all been built since, well, other than one. One pre-existed by the time I moved to town. And 3 have been built since I moved to town, and those 3 were. 2 of them were just within the past 2 to 3 years.
So the two in Desert Gardens were built probably before, like around 2000.
And they're both on more than 20.
Yes, okay. One was built before I moved here, one was built after I was here.
So
I
what are
just don't
the,
know when it was.
what are the sizes in Desert Gardens?
We have one that's about 6,000 square feet.
No,
It's not
The
that big.
Coombs,
no.
No, they're,
It's 53 or 2.
yeah, something like that. It's not a whole lot over. It's not a whole
The
lot.
next biggest one is in Scotland.
that's what,
Uh-huh.
And is that, square footage or is that living space?
That is,
Probably
from what
square
I've
footage,
seen,
I think.
no, it's living space. If you go on the county website and you go and ask for a property report, it shows on there how much is the house, how much is, garages, how much is all this extra stuff. And so, there too are living space. And the one in Rio, from what I can see, it was over 5,000 on, living space, but it was on 2 acres of land, which is totally allowable under this ordinance. And then that just leaves that one, over in observation estates.
So where does Mercer's fourplex fall?
You know, I do not know. I would have to look that up. I can look that up while we're sitting here. I didn't think to check his.
Because that's, I'm thinking from compatibility standards, I'm just curious.
Okay, let me
So
look that
while
up.
you're doing that, Darlene, how was the 48 arrived at?
We went, I believe it was 15, I'd have to go back and look at my notes, it's been a few months. But we did it by percentage, and we did 2 ways, percentage of the lot. Or, a flat, like a 4,800, whichever is greater.
But you came up with 4,800, as April said, by looking around at the houses in different neighborhoods and getting an idea of what the biggest houses were, what the average is, and so. I come up with only 4 houses in the whole town that are, bigger, but I'm almost about to get your question answered here, Paul.
So what constitutes living space according to the website that,
We do not have a definition of living space.
so what are they when you look at their website? What constitutes living space off the website?
What website? You mean the town county website?
Yes.
I'm gonna show you right here. Okay. Here is the property report that you asked for percent. It shows property type.
Space classes for training.
Residential, year built 2023, square footage 4,371. Over here, it has garage square feet 1,114, and there's no basements, there's no swimming pools. This is where, and it shows there's 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. So I pulled up I pulled up a property report for every, and then you see they have this here. They have floor plans,
Okay.
and you can look at the floor plan and then calculate and see what they've done, how they came up with
I
it.
would suspect that they mean the total square footage minus the garage,
Yeah,
probably.
that's what I was
That's
wondering,
what,
so
that's
what's that
what,
minus
so
the
you can
garage?
see here, for this example, it says square feet, there's, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, how many is the garage, and then, here is the floor plan, and it's got the square footage on it.
Right.
And so you can look at any property in town and see this report and get this, the floor plan and see what. So to me, this is living space is the 4,300, so his is not even over this,
Well, yeah, and that creates the issue, because if you look at
the neighborhood.
the neighborhood and the compatibility with the neighborhood, you almost have to take into consideration the massive size of that building compared to, well, what's next to it, and you have to have the garages because it's all incorporated into the architectural design. It's the massive size of the building that's the issue, not the living space.
Okay,
I mean, just from a perception standpoint, if you're looking at compatibility.
yes, Darby.
In that particular case, does that have also something to do with, non-compliance with that?
No, this one we made him
He brought
cut
down
down
the
the roof so that he would comply with that.
How big is the land that he's on?
Let me go back and look at this, the lot. It said here, and I open the report again. .33,
So that would make a difference
that would make a difference, but on the side, on the,
if it's only 15%.
so if it had been a fuller acre, it would not have looked that size, it would not have looked that big. But it is, 0.33 in rural residential.
How did that happen?
Don't know how to tell you that, okay, it was zoned way back. Before any of us lived here, it was zoned that, don't know how that happened. So what do we wanna do with this?
Okay, so, first of all, I wanted to talk about the title of the ordinance. It says, large structures in residential zones, including overlay zones. Would we want to make that more specific to say STR overlay zone?
As far as I know, the STR overlay zone is the only one we have, but yes, because this is limited to, this whole ordinance is limited just to the residential zone and the rural residential zone. I think it would not be bad to include, say, including short-term rental overlay zone.
There's a couple of other places in the ordinance that we might want to add that to, on page 4. Where it says, dwelling standards, and then we have dwellings in the residential zone. Should we add an SP overlay zone?
Okay, then, yeah. We could have including
Including,
short-term rental overlay zone.
I think we should, just to make
I
it
think it's
clear.
really clear. Because of course, the overlay zone, the short-term rental overlay zone is only available to either something that's zoned residential or
It's a-
rural
yeah,
residential.
Yeah,
So
when you put,
it's,
when you put the limitation on either residential or rural residential, the overlay takes the underlying zones.
standard.
So we don't need to add that.
You don't,
In your,
I,
yeah.
it
You think
doesn't
it's
hurt one way
unnecessary?
or another, but it's not required,
Okay.
because you're looking at,
The underlying zone.
you gotta meet all the requirements of the underlying zone and then get the overlay over it. So, and we're not gonna have any new subdivisions with overlays,
No.
overlays dead unless somebody revives it.
Okay. So I picked up on that because the title says
Well-
including overlay zones, and I didn't know if maybe.
We could delete the words including overlay zones
Or
or
if
just
you
put
add it,
both
it doesn't
residential
hurt.
zones or something like that. All residential zones. We could add the word all in the title we could take including overlay zones off and put in the words all.
Okay, so
What was the
development of large structure in all residential zones.
I think she wanted it clear that this includes
Oh,
the overlay.
well, if you say include overlay on it, it doesn't hurt it either.
Okay,
But what she was saying, we have it in the title.
Yeah, but not
we don't
anywhere
have
in
it
there.
anywhere in here. So that's where she was saying, should we include that?
I mean, if it's not necessary, I'm fine with it.
No, because you're actually amending specific language in the zone. So where would you would have to add new language into the zone.
Okay,
You see
okay,
what I mean?
yes, yes,
You have
okay.
the code language that you'd have to deal.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
okay, and then a new public hearing and blah, 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 because you change the language.
I don't know if you need a new public hearing, but it makes it problematic in amending it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be proposing a new overlay zone probably, in a couple of months, so. Yet a different, completely different type of overlay zone, but there will be, I'll at least propose it, we'll see where it goes, but, I have another overlay zone for residential that I'll be proposing.
So one of my, I listened to the public. They don't agree with limiting the size of their homes, and I did a lot of thinking about it. And one of my main positions on this is that we're all doing a groundwater, study right now. And I've researched a lot of the previous wastewater studies, and I'm thinking that we'll probably find that we need, 1 unit for more than 1 acre. It's possible that.
We'll end up with saying 2 acres or 3 acres or something like that.
Yeah, so just think that my position is until we have the final report and determination on that, from that study, that we need to restrict the size of the homes and the septic system.
Well, I was thinking when it comes to the septic systems, because Larry McRae made this point at one of the public planning commission meetings, and I thought it was a reasonable suggestion, which is if they have if the lot size is larger than an acre and they're going to be able to build a bigger home, and we're letting the home size increase depending on the size of the acreage, why can we not also allow the septic tank to be bigger depending on the larger acreage? And I thought that was a reasonable suggestion.
I think we need to wait until we get the final report on what our density should be.
Okay. All right, just thought I'd throw that out there, that I thought that was a reasonable request.
So would you repeat what you're,
What he was proposing.
I understand yours. What he's proposing is that to do away with this septic restriction because it should depend on the acres of the lot.
Yes, but we can have this 1,500, and then, but as you've got bigger acreage, and you would have a bigger home. What they're gonna be limited if they
Yeah.
only have a 1,500 gallon.
My question was gonna go back to April. I'm still trying to digest what your concern is about the wastewater report coming out.
So
It's the
The
I
groundwater protection side.
want to get the results of that. Because in my opinion, we've been going on the 1 unit per acre for all these years with really not that much of a basis for that, honestly. I read the older wastewater studies that we have over the past several years. And there was the early one said that they didn't do virgin specifically, but they had done studies in the surrounding areas. And they said that the unit, I thought, should be, 1 unit for 3 to 4 acres in areas surrounding us. So and then the last one that came out was in 2022, and they said, we absolutely need to maintain the 1 unit per 1 acre, but they didn't do any detailed studies. So this study that's coming up will absolutely tell us what our density should be.
But then I'm trying to make the nexus between building size and density restrictions.
Well, we're limiting in this ordinance to a 1,500 gallon septic tank.
Okay,
Shoot,
And so what I'm saying is, we need to keep that ordinance in place and limit the size of the house, because, you know, the larger your house, the more wastewater that you require. So if we limit the size of the house and only 1,500 gallon tank, I think that that's where we should be right now until we find out what the study says.
I will say, I asked the Water Conservancy District more than once how they came up with 1 home per acre, given that the Hanson, Allen and Luce study that they had just done for everywhere else in the county had come up with 1 home for 3 acres. And they were like, no idea why that got allowed in our contract. And I was like, okay, they don't know where it came from. The choice of 1 home for 1 acre as opposed to 3 acres, which is what the county, what the Hanson, Allen and Luce study and stuff. They're also updating that study, by the way. Water Conservancy District is getting a new update on that very old Hanson, Allen and Luce study, which had limited the county to 1 home for 3 acres.
so how did we come up with the 1,500 limitation?
If you go to, let me find it here, I had put in our SharePoint back in,
That would be basically 5
that's
bedrooms.
fine.
Based on 300 gallons per
Okay.
bedroom, that's 1,500 gallons, that's a pretty typical septic tank size for a home.
So what happens to homes that are within whatever square footage we decide on, but it's over 5 bedrooms? Then they're just still limited to the 1,500.
Under this one, yes, this is where Larry was asking about this limitation of 1,500. I mean, we could potentially go from
Yeah,
a
what?
2,000 gallon.
I had the
Yes.
this is Marcy. I had the same question as Paul. If this ordinance allows a 4,800 square foot home, could a 4,800 square foot home potentially need more than a 1,500 gallon septic tank? So then,
I think so, yes.
right, so,
Well, 4,800 square foot home probably wouldn't, I mean, it could have more than 5 bedrooms, but
Unlikely, but I mean, it could have.
I thought we were limited to 10 people in 5
No, the 10,
short-term rentals.
yeah, the 5-bedroom, 10-person thing is.
Short-term rental.
Yeah, that's not what that's got nothing to do with what we're talking about here. But the 1,500 gallon septic tank under that rule that I had put in here, that I'm not finding right now, but it was in our, one of our SharePoint folders.
So what happens if we have,
You're talking about the septic tank question?
Yes,
Or-
yes.
I thought it's just, you will see that a single family dwelling with 5 bedrooms requires a 1,500 gallon septic tank.
Yeah, if you go to that rule that, I indicated
And
there
there
are
are
a septic question.
317.
so what happens if we get an application for an 8-person residential home for recovery? Which you have to treat as residential, then we would not, they would be limited to a 1,500 gallon tank and only 5 bedrooms because they can't build above 5. So by limiting the size of the tank, we limit the number of bedrooms.
The way
That's
that,
right,
yes,
that's right,
yes.
and until we have more conclusive, the final report and their conclusion.
On the ground.
That lets us know what our density should be, that seems acceptable right now.
Next, who's running this study
Sunrise. Sunrise Engineering is doing the study.
and who orders the study?
Who ordered it?
We did.
We did.
Okay. So each community has their own ordinance for size, or is there a state code?
No, there's no state code. There is no state code for size. What I said is that what we are proposing is in line with what has already been enacted in our neighboring communities. Rockville and Springfield both have limits on the size of their homes. And their restrictions are more restrictive than what we are proposing. So we're actually allowing bigger homes than they do. And they're not having any problems with getting people coming to their town and wanting to buy property and build a house. It's just, this is not gonna hamper building. I think there's a state code on the minimum square footage. I know it's minimum, but not maximum. So all I was gonna say, depending on what, keeping in mind April's concern about the groundwater protection study, I still have no objection to potentially, increasing the allowable size of the septic tank. And maybe changing the percentage from 12 to 15, since that's really what you guys have proposed, right? Darlene, yeah. So, Marcy, you said that you had the same questions, Paul, as to what the limitation on what would be the result of the limitation on the septic tank? Do you have any other things that you would like to say about the ordinance? Because Paul and April and I have all talked about it, but now it's gonna go to you and Misty. So what do you have to say, Marcy? Your voice, start over, your microphone must not be on, we can't hear you, so start over.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
All I really have to say is that, I mean, I believe in protecting our neighborhoods. I think new buildings and structures should be compatible with existing structures, surroundings, and the conditions. I think Virgin is really eclectic. Our neighborhoods vary greatly. Our geology and our view sheds are much different than the communities upriver. And I don't think that a one size fits all. And I don't think that's a solution. That's really what I have to say about it.
Okay. Misty, do you have anything to add, given your statements that you made at previous town council meetings where we talked about this? Do you have anything else you want to add? Or just reiterate?
Just I agree with Marcy. Our Virgin is unique and everything in Virgin is unique. I feel like limiting the house size the way that we're doing it, it shouldn't be something we put on our residents. I think this could be easily solved by changing the name from in residential areas to only putting them in short-term overlay subdivisions. And that's my opinion on it. And I know we can't change it now without doing a new public hearing, but those are my thoughts.
Thank you. So this is where, yeah.
With Misty's suggestion, Misty, we already have a current limitation of 5 bedrooms, 10 people for short-term rentals. Why?
I understand that. I do, and I've read it, but I know that I know that there's been people within those subdivisions that are trying to build bigger homes. And so if the goal is to keep those larger homes from turning into short-term rentals, then we limit it just to short-term rental overlay subdivisions.
Thanks for the explanation. I pulled up Lauren's email because he mentioned that there are 2 septic tanks that are larger in Rio de Sion than the 1500.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what he says in his email. One is 1750 and one is approximately 2,000 gallons per tank.
So isn't it possible that once we get the results of this study, that we could change the size of the septic tanks? They're based on that.
Yeah, you could, yeah, or you could go with a higher amount and then change it once you get the study, so. we're
Either
still-
way,
Either
either
way.
way, you could change it once we get the study, whether we increase it now.
Yeah,
Or,
his concern, I think, was in the residents that had that concern is that if we change it, then it becomes a non-conforming use, and then what happens if there's a fire? That was one of the concerns, more or less for the structure. And then the second is for their particular uses for that building, then they can't build because they don't have the septic size.
okay,
So in other words, I think what they're saying, if I'm gonna paraphrase, if we allow, let's say, 4,800. And they need a higher septic, they can't build that 4,800, so it becomes an even lower limit. on the
Okay,
building
because I
size.
wanted to point out, he's not the only one who said, oh, if our house burns down, you can't rebuild it. It's like, there isn't a house in Rio that doesn't, at the present time, there is not a single house in Rio that does not meet this. So every house could be rebuilt, the only problem is, as you point out, septic tank.
Well, I would assume the septic tank would probably still be in existence, so.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't have burned, the septic tank's still gonna be in the ground and not burnt, you would think. Hold on, Bronwyn had her hand up first.
Oh, we just did a little bit more research, and just for consistency with the number and the silence that stage you want to go 1750 or 1800, otherwise it's kind of tricky.
What were you gonna say, Darby?
I think 1750 septic is a thing. I don't know about 1800. I think the next one up is 2000.
Yes, the next one up would be 2000.
Yeah.
I think it, after 1500, I think it goes up 250 and 250.
And that's six bedroom. But correct me if I'm incorrect, but this is kind of also a placeholder until we get that other word.
The ground, yeah,
Finished and the groundwater study. And we primarily heard from one neighborhood.
yeah, the only other person who objected was Cameron, and his objection was that this did not encourage affordable housing. Which it's not in our whereases, it's not a stated goal that this will bring us affordable housing. It makes no such claim. What it actually is claiming here is that we have no affordable housing because of the desire for large short-term rentals. And so that's really, the short-term rentals had reduced affordable housing. That's happened countywide, that's not just Virgin. And so there's no claim in here that this will encourage affordable housing, it's to stop the bleeding. That's more what it is to stop the bleeding, not to encourage more. So what do you guys want to do? Paul, you're still researching, but we have to reach a decision tonight since tomorrow is the deadline.
I'm back at the septic tank regulations now, and maybe Darlene knows it off the top of your head. So 1750, how many bedrooms does that permit per square footage? What's that? I'm sorry, from?
That's right, 5 bedrooms are severe.
The rule limits goes by size of bedrooms, number of bedrooms, it does not go by square footage of your house.
So how many bedrooms does 1750?
Six.
Six. And how many does 2000?
Seven.
But it's not bedroom area that could be used as a bedroom, so
Yeah.
you have a.
Right, yeah.
Well, if we're gonna change the size out, we might as well go to 2,000, because I think once we get the study, we're gonna have to lower that anyway, or require people to do alternative septic systems.
And I think that's where the study's gonna go to. That it's either gonna be smaller, or if not smaller, then the alternative system. Because that was already proposed in our wastewater study, that we consider alternative systems or alternative septic systems for new build. And I think that I'll be surprised if the groundwater protection study doesn't come up with the same suggestion. Recommendation.
So then my other question is how come we include casitas and outbuildings?
Because those could be bedrooms. Those are bedrooms. The casita is a bedroom. Outbuildings, while they may not be a bedroom, they have the potential to be built and then converted in the future into living space.
But if we limit it to 2,000,
The septic tank.
the septic tank. 2,000 doesn't that limit? Put a limit on outbuildings,
That would allow up to, as we said, 7 bedrooms.
7 bedrooms, okay.
So let's say you build,
Right.
just as a hypothetical, if somebody built a 40, let's say a 3,600 square foot home, which is, I think, in today's world, is average. I just still think that's a big house. Thinking of the homes we all grew up in, we probably grew up in 1,800 square foot homes. And we had 5 kids and we shared bedrooms and it was, we all survived. Here we are today. And so I think a 3,600 square foot is a large house, but let's say somebody has built a 3,600 square foot home and then there's a casita and an outbuilding that all together come to 4,800 square feet. Even if that outbuilding is not a bedroom, it is, let's say it's a shed, it could easily be remodeled in the future and become a bedroom.
Well, I was looking at it because the way we say this is dwelling shall be permitted a single septic tank. So theoretically, if you got a different dwelling unit on that property, then you're entitled to another septic tank.
Okay,
So
okay, is that what you were gonna say, Bronwyn, or were you gonna say something
I was
else?
gonna say that, and just as a white umbrella here, one of the things as far as affordable housing down the road, you don't want to discourage casitas. It's really a good idea not to discourage those, and we also have restrictions as far as renting the rate, we didn't want to have happen with them, those restrictions can be in place too. So I'm just saying that, don't discourage casitas, yes, you have to have a separate septic tank for as well.
Okay, I wanna, this reminds me, one of the things that is a bugaboo of mine is I don't like the word casita. It's an external accessory dwelling unit under the state code, and I really don't like using the word casita. I want it to be external ADU.
well, let me tell you what I was thinking of, and that's kind of why I'm trying to troubleshoot this. Now that I have a lot of the explanations. As I was thinking of, because it says including casitas and outbuildings. And I was gonna say, well, when we're dealing with mass, I would say including attached casitas and outbuildings. That means you could still, in the calculation, you could still have unattached casitas and outbuildings, which doesn't go to the size limitation. But then the question is, if they detached the casita or outbuilding, would they be entitled to another septic tank?
No, because we have the 1 unit per acre.
Well,
It's one dwelling, one septic tank per dwelling.
Yes, except that
Where
if you
does it say one?
On our ordinance, so
dwellings,
But
shall be
is there a
permitted.
limitation in regulations of the
It
Southwest
doesn't say the
Department?
parcel, it doesn't say the parcel, it says dwellings. So he's saying an external unit is a separate dwelling, and would it have a separate septic tank? But I will tell you that if you look at the state code that is talking about the ADUs.
Yeah,
They say ADUs are on, they must be on the same water connection and the same septic. tank. They're keeping
okay,
that.
so,
That's what state code.
so there
says.
wouldn't be a problem on creating an extra septic tank by doing.
Yes, yes, Darlene.
That state stipulation would give it an idea, and the average, size of the house in Utah, which is the largest in the nation, is 2,800 square feet.
Okay, so so I was right when I say 3,600 square feet is actually still a big house. So what would you want this language to say? Including external ADUs, which I would prefer that term just because instead of the word casita, I would like our code to match the language that is in the state code, which calls them external ADUs. Because you've got internal ADUs, you've got external ADUs, they've got slightly different rules depending on if it's internal or external. The rules are very slight between the two. But if you're doing an internal ADU into an already existing home, you can't change the footprint. It just has to be within the existing footprint. What are you laughing at, Jay? You have a smile on your face. Okay.
I don't like the language of it, including casitas and any outbuildings.
Do you
That
want
are
to just
unattached.
Broadway?
So if you have attached ADU and attached
Well,
outbuilding, then I'm all right with the calculation of the limitation.
well, okay, then if we allow 40, if we do not include external ADUs, then you can have a 4,800 square foot house, a 1,200 square foot external ADU, and have a total of 6,000 square feet on an acre of land. And,
Yes,
okay, so if you don't have a problem with that, then that's fine.
but it goes back to what are we trying to,
Sizing of homes that meet, that
the size,
work with the surrounding neighborhoods, and they're not too big, they don't fill up one of the things that I think is because we have this idea that we are a rural community, or we want to maintain that rural identity or aesthetic. You have smaller houses with lots of land around you, and the rural areas, to my experience, don't go fill the parcel from border to border with everything they possibly can. That's what you see in urban areas where they just expand, they build everything they possibly can on their area of land that they have. And rural areas, you feel more open because there's more space.
Well, if you go to the 15%, then it would be, allowed to have, 6,534.
Yeah, I think that the
Okay.
15% allows you to go beyond our 4,800 square feet. Yes.
whichever's greater. So
Whichever is greater.
15%, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So yeah, I already looked at that even though we say 4,800 square feet, if we say 15%, that they can do a much bigger house.
If they have an acre.
If they have
an acre.
Well,
That particular number, but based on 1 acre.
well,
At 15%.
the 15% is, that we have exactly the same size, no matter if it's a residential zone or rural residential, we have the same.
So you, has anybody?
Well, that's 15% of the lot though,
Of
so,
an acre, of a 1 acre lot.
well, some of those aren't 1 acre.
No, the number you quoted us.
That's right, that was
one
based on 1 acre.
Yes.
so the calculation for 1 acre, how big a house would that be?
6534.
6534.
If they wanted to go to the max, they would have that, including external ADUs and outbuildings. If we don't change, if we don't take that out. If we do take that off, that they could still have 6,538 square foot home and let's say a 1,200 square foot casita, and now you're at, you know, 8,000 square feet on an acre of land. That's a lot.
So we have 2 acres, those are huge houses, that number, would you ever look at the example for the population?
Would be twice that, 12,000.
It would be twice that. They'd end up with 12,000 square feet.
If they have 2 acres. that's
If they
what-
had 2 acres, yes, they'd be able to go to 12,000 square feet. What?
Would you look at a lower percentage?
For 2 acres.
Oh, yeah, no, on the back of that, there's an example that gives you some different numbers.
On the back of what?
The recommendation we sent.
I didn't get a recommendation,
Oh, when you guys sent the recommendation,
Yeah,
I don't have that, I don't know where that is.
but we can't do a whole lot of changing here, or we're back to having that public hearing. And then we've got to do something with this ordinance tonight.
But as a practical matter, with the limitation of 2,000, let's say we go 2,000 square feet on the septic, you're still limiting the size of the building.
Yeah,
probably.
2,000 gallon.
Yeah, 2,000 gallon tank for,
Yes, Darlene's down
So
over here.
the 2,000 square gallon tank would also address the concerns of some citizens who felt like, well, what if you wanted to have 4 bedrooms and a den and a workout room, and that would give them the space to do that. And I just have to reiterate, this is a placeholder.
Yes,
No.
yes, and that, which is what is April's point too, is until we get the results of the groundwater protection study, this could very well change. And you guys still have some other work that you guys want to work on, so
what's the time frame expected for
groundwater protection
Yes.
study, a year.
a year
I
from
thought it
now?
was the end of the year.
Well, if they had been able to start in January, they said a year from the time they start.
Okay.
We were trying to get them to start in January. It took, they just got started the day, whatever day that was, Bronwyn, when they came and dug past your house to install a monitoring point. That's the day they started, because they took their first sample that day.
So was that in July or? in
That,
June?
no, June. It was in June.
Okay.
So, so that it will be June of next year, so that gives you guys plenty of time to be, while we wait for that, because it would be nice to have all of this incorporated into, if we were making any changes in the future, to have, all of that incorporated into one ordinance. Take the results of your guidance research and, what groundwater protection study.
I don't have any other comments.
I have a quick, just a general question. Has the town defined casita and outbuilding? It's not, I don't see it in Vulu.
No, we were just discussing that we would prefer to use the term external accessory dwelling unit instead of casita. Because that's the state code term for what we're calling a casita. And outbuildings, no, I don't know that we have any, that's just, to me, outbuildings is common sense, being a shed or other buildings that you have on the property, other structures that are on the property.
Other
that you're not living in.
unattached structures.
Yes, unattached structures where no one's living in them, but you're using them for storage or whatever, I don't know, a horse stall.
So that could be a large RV garage, I suppose.
Yes, it could be an RV garage that is separate from the house.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, I also noticed in the one document you provided to us, it's called RA zone in Rockville. One of the
Yes.
things is it identifies 4,000 square feet per building. And I'm sure you guys have all seen this. I thought it was interesting because it says the footprint includes any accessory buildings or garages if either are attached. So I just think that relates to Paul's comments.
about the detached buildings?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, because I think Rockville was getting at the building size of a particular structure. That's why they included attached ADUs in other buildings. So that went to my comment when I was saying, should we add including attached? And that way we exclude detached. But then what the mayor is saying is then the coverage of the lot becomes very immense.
yes.
And that creates a different issue.
I think theirs is on 5 acres also.
But who?
Rockville.
Rockville one,
Rockville.
RA5 zoning.
But being that we're in a rural community, outer buildings are important to certain types of individuals. There are farmers who need a shop to put their farm equipment in. There are also people who build all of their equipment for their farms, and they need an outer building large enough to have the equipment in the building, as well as all of the tools and the machines they need to fix it.
Okay, but are these farmers in the agricultural zone? Because this is not affecting the agricultural zone. This is just residential and rural residential. If they're in
Who's
the
to-
agricultural zone, they're fine.
But who's to say that they wouldn't have bought a home not in an agricultural zone? Some people's ranches are in New Harmony or the surrounding areas wherever we have farming going on, and they bring their equipment back. I know there's a farmer that does go out to Springdale to cut their hay, but they're located in at their home. So
Okay.
it's not necessarily the question of is their farm is right there, but they may be fixing their equipment in their barn. And I'll tell
Okay.
you that a lot of men I've talked to want a large barn, and it's like a large RV. It is something
A man
they
thing.
need. And also, I know that there are people who have businesses that they run online where they make wood or things like that, and they need a big shop for that. They sell those things.
I want to add just one additional thing. You know, some people might want to build an additional building that is just considered a shop, a
Yeah.
mechanical shop, you can call it an outbuilding, you call it a garage, it's detached. It may have zero water or plumbing in it. It may just be a structure that has electrical outlets, lights, power, and that's it. There may be no bathrooms, no living quarters, so there's no need for any kind of septic. So
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, Marcy. Thank you.
Yes, so meanwhile, though, with the 15%, if we increase the 12% to 15%, as we said, even on an acre, we're talking 6,538 square feet for a house and a garage, like you're saying, and it could be a pretty darn big garage on top of a 4,800 square foot home. And they've been able to do that even with this limitation. You'd be able to build a house and a garage, a large house and a large garage, workshop. Or garage, whatever you wanna call it. Barn, barn, that's the word I was looking for. Not a garage, a barn.
So if you end up adding my suggestion of attached, I don't think that changes doesn't change the calculation of the particular building size, but I see what you're saying. You could end up with two large buildings.
Even with this, you can end up with two large buildings.
Even with this,
With this, you could end up with. You could end up with a house, an external ADU and a barn. and still be within the 15, if you had an acre and 6,538 square feet, you could still build an ADU, a barn, a house, and still be within this. This does not say you're only getting one structure per parcel, or you can have multiple structures. And with 6,538 square feet, there's still some big structures. Oh, 1 acre. And if you've got a 2 acre, you could be up to, as she said, as April said, we'll just double the 6,538 square feet, and you've got what can be done on 2 acres. That's 13,000 square feet. You could have a large house, an external ADU, a massive workshop, a barn. You could have all of that in 13,000 square feet. So I just think this is doable.
I have one more last comment.
Yes,
So this also says 4,800 square feet of living area.
that means it doesn't include the garage.
Okay, but then it goes on to say, or 12% of the parcel, whichever is greater, including casitas and any outbuildings. So
So we were proposing changing the 12 to 15. That's what we've been talking about, is making the 12, 15, and that 50, if it was using as an example, a 1 acre parcel, they could do 6,538 square feet, and in that 6,538 square feet, they're gonna have a house, an external ADU, a workshop, a barn, and still have a big house, a reasonably sized ADU, and a barn on 1 acre. And if we are looking at this same percentage on 2 acres, then they would have 13,500 square feet that they could do on 2 acres of land. Yes, Darlene.
So there's a house in Desert Garden where the house itself is a little under 2,500 square feet. And he has, 3 garages, a shop, an RV that are more than the house, and he's still under the 6,000.
Okay, did you hear what she said, Marcy? Did you hear what Darlene just said? If not, I'll give Darlene a microphone.
if
Do you have
if
a
she could,
microphone? Yeah.
if she could talk into a microphone, that'd be very helpful.
So there is a home in Desert Gardens, and that describes a lot of what Misty was mentioning. He has a large RV barn, a shop where he works on restoring vehicles, 3 garages, and a little under 2,500 square foot house. His outbuildings are actually more square foot than his house, and he's still under.
The 6,000.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't hit 5,000.
Okay.
He's just under.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think, Paul, when you told me today, when I said there was something I was gonna add to the agenda, and you said I was being awfully, had bigger expectations that we would, not get to it because of this, and we've spent an hour on this already. You are correct, we will not get to the, additional stuff I wanted to add.
I just knew that this would be
A
a
lot
little
longer,
time consuming because of the emotions involved,
okay,
from the citizens.
okay.
And so I wanted to make sure I thought through all the possible ramifications, whether it's temporary or not.
So I had some, further discussions. We all got the email from, we find it. Jesse Kimball. He had emailed everybody with this, so you guys all saw it, right?
I spoke with him today as well.
Okay, because he and I were emailing back and forth. I did not know if any of the rest of you had made any attempt to talk to him.
I talked to him separately because he sent me an email and I responded to him and asked him some other questions.
Okay, because I did some emailing back and forth with him too.
And I think where we're at now, I think where his building plans would fit within what
So
we're.
that's what he has 3 quarters of an acre,
0.72.
0.7.
Because I asked him what it is and he wrote and said 0.72. So I was going to check and see how he fell within this.
That's what I think April's doing now.
He has the lot is 39,260 square feet, 0.72 acres.
That would be less than 4,700 square foot house.
Well, so 15% of 31,260 square feet is what?
4,704.
Okay. Now, his house.
He said there was some more acreage that is just shared zone behind him. He didn't want to spend any more money because, I guess, to potentially buy that additional acreage.
Okay, because I thought to myself, I did not propose this to him, but I was going to suggest that if they did a lot line adjustment with his father's land next to it and increase the size of his lot, he would be fine to be able to do the work, but I did not propose that.
Right.
Because I think with everything he has planned here, that, because he wrote to me and showed me he sent me the plans and talked about everything. I think that his, he could do what he wanted if he had a paper. Be really close to them and do everything he wants if he had.
Musical chairs.
Right.
No, that's all.
Yeah, it's like, what is that about?
And I was trying to be discreet.
Yeah, if he had an acre of land, he'd totally be able to do everything on his plans.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, Darlene.
I don't know if this will help Mr. Kimball, but one thing I acutely have sensitivity to in whatever comes after this is the unique situation of Reader's design.
Yes.
They're unique. And how can we accommodate?
Well, that's what I asked Keith at our meeting in May, that because 99% of the objections to this ordinance all come from Rio de Janeiro. And Rio de Janeiro is unlike any other subdivision in the town. And if we could not treat them, give them some sorts, if we couldn't address Rio somehow in a way to make them be able to work with them, because they're just not like the rest of the town.
And I think that would be fair because we give benefits to commercial. When they're subdivided and they haven't quite fit the standard for that area, we should do the same. For residential subdivisions, who have that land and it's open space, and I don't see where there's a problem, maybe we need to revisit that.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Like a bonus, you're saying, because they have open space.
and they're actually what was called a zone that we don't have anymore. When they were designed, when they were done, they were zoned planned unit development. And they gave them this rural residential zone, and then that planned unit development zone went away. And is no longer part of the town code, but under the planned unit development zone that the town had at the time. They had the ability to do all sorts of things with this property, and now that the zone is no longer around, I don't even have a copy of what the zone was. When they were done. I've looked, I cannot even find the
So
zone.
what they ended up doing is clustering the homes and creating more open space.
Yes, that's what they did, but the planned unit development, what, I found a letter from, the developer back in the day, and he mentioned that the planned unit development gave them additional rights. And it talked about what the rights were, but it was in the zone, and I can't find a copy of the zone back then. To know, because to me, we should be looking at that to be able to work something out for Rio, because I just think they have a different, situation from anybody else. Yes, one of you want to say something, was that you, Brian?
No.
Okay,
Oh, I'm just saying, including on the living space, so likely solve the problem when we live in Zion. Or better, solve the problem there.
I think it would, but, because it says living area, and that's why it doesn't include garages, it does not include outbuildings. It does include the external ADUs, however, and, I am with Darlene that I had already thought, and as I said, I brought it up at a town council meeting, and I asked Heath, could we do something to help Rio?
I just don't know how to do it, I know. it's-
I don't know how to do it either, but
The bonus for clustering.
I think it might. When I think of looking at our subdivision law, because I think it's a matter of equity.
okay, for you guys who are online, Darlene was saying, one way we may be able to help Rio is under the new subdivision laws, but they were done under a planned unit development zone. And that's what they would be held to, is whatever the zone was when they were created, not what the new subdivision code allows. But it might give some ideas, I think is what you're saying. But I still want to know what the planned unit development zone was back in the day.
Planned unit development,
It was a PUD.
Who can you say,
and
except,
say, except planned unit development.
But they're not zoned that way anymore.
They're not zoned that way anymore, there's a rural residential. And so what I had asked Heath at the town council meeting was because rural residential is limited to an acre or more. You can't have anything less than an acre in rural residential. But they're zoned rural residential. Therefore, could we treat each lot in Rio as a 1 acre lot? And he said no. And I was like, but I don't know why, but I thought if they're rural residential, it's a special zone. It was special for Rio that they zoned it rural residential because of their planned unit development, the clustering, that why couldn't we treat each lot in that subdivision as a 1 acre lot?
That's about the language restriction, you could barely change this, so can you say, except subdivisions originally developed under whatever that was? Can you say that? Can you say that?
I think that would change this enough that we would have to go back to a public hearing.
What? We're trying to.
But yeah,
but if we passed this, and then immediately went back.
Exactly.
And added that,
exactly,
and then we passed that.
exactly,
Yeah,
yes.
Can you read that?
if we can, but it's funky, very funky.
I understand it's clunky, but we can't do anything that requires us to go back to a public hearing.
Yeah, I understand that. We can't do this like what we did.
I don't know where everybody else is on this. I'm gonna try to move it along.
Yeah, because
Without
we
making a
beat it,
motion.
we beat it to death.
Yeah. I came in here not knowing how I was gonna vote, and I vacillated. Depending on the day, not based on what I'm hearing, a particular person's testimony, but based on different considerations. I've been vacillating over the week and vacillated several times today as to what would be approvable. I do appreciate April's comment about the groundwater study. I have forgotten about that and did not factor that into my vacillation, which creates more of an issue.
Creates more vacillation.
But, I would, if, for me to agree with this, I would want to see it at 15%, not the 12%. I would also like to see the gallons raised to 2,000 on the septic tank. And I would like to see, when it says including, casitas and outbuildings to have the word attached before those. So it will only apply to attached casitas and attached outbuildings. I do understand the effect that it could create for that lot.
Yeah,
But it does provide what Misty's concerned about is for the guy from home improvement that wants his big monster shop to be on his property. Maybe because he's still limited. He's still limited by how big his property is. In a way.
yes, I just
So-
hold on, Ron. I understand, but I'm not getting this including attached ADUs or internal ADUs is actually what they call it. Because the state code actually calls that an internal ADU,
Right.
not attached, but internal. This still allows them to build an external ADU outside of this.
Correct.
Well, why?
Correct.
Why?
Well, so if you look at it, attached casita, that would be included in the 4,800 square feet, right?
Right.
Because it's attached.
It's attached.
So,
What would not be included if it was detached?
If it's a detached, an external
okay, well,
ADU,
yeah,
then it's not included, which would allow them to just build and build and build and build.
well, they're still limited to 500%.
No, no,
It's whichever is greater, but they're gonna be
no,
limited
the
by,
living area
but,
is
but,
15%.
but they're gonna be limited by septic tank.
Yes, I do get that. Yes,
Well, considering all the factors in that suggestion, it is quite a bit easier to limit the size of an ADU in another ordinance quickly than it is to figure out the factors.
okay, thank you. Are you in agreement with that, Darlene? Karen?
Whatever those two guys.
No.
And
So for Marcy and Misty, what Bronwyn said is that if we go along with Paul's proposal, that we then, can do subsequent, modification of this ordinance,
Or another ordinance, just limit the size of it.
limiting the size of external
Yeah.
ADUs. Either a modification of this one or just a separate ordinance altogether, modifying somewhere in our code the limitation on the size of an external ADU. That's what Robin and Darlene both said that they could work with that.
And the other item I would want to see is that this ordinance would sunset in 1 year
We can't do that.
unless we renew
We can't do that under the state code. because we've already done a temporary ordinance and you can't do a limiting or a temporary, a 6 month ordinance and then put another ordinance
So
out.
here's my
Can't do that.
comment to it, is what we're doing is, we're making this permanent.
No, we should modify it later, then it's not permanent.
So why can't I say it's got a sunset unless we extend it?
Because the state code says we can't do 2 limiting ordinances back to back.
We do temporary.
It's real clear, we cannot do a 2 time
No, I-
ordinances back to back.
It's not, it's a termination of this ordinance. Not an extension of the timeframe of the temporary ordinance. It's not, it's terminating it altogether in 1 year.
So this over there,
But I understand the concern.
Real quick. Because we're getting complaints. I didn't list this meeting as a joint meeting.
what?
I did not list this meeting as a joint meeting. And
Okay,
you
well,
guys
I'm
have
just,
involved this as a joint meeting.
okay, I am letting planning commission give us some input, but okay.
But we are
Okay.
planning.
Okay,
commission
okay, I get it,
together,
I get it, I
And you
get
guys
it.
are jointly.
Yeah,
having this
but-
meeting. Well, no, you guys seem to spread out.
No,
They're together.
yeah,
And you guys are involving them
Yeah, but
together, and
that's-
it's listed as a forum.
yeah, no,
I should have brought this up already, but okay.
They just spread out.
yes, I
No, I
agree,
think it needs you to be out there.
but I think it goes to more, we're involving the 3 into the conversations, although Kent hasn't been involved in that
He's
conversation.
just kept his.
He's kept his mouth shut on purpose. What I would suggest in the future is that we notice it anyway for both planning board and town council, so that way if we have 3 planning board members here, it's already been noticed as
We
a
get 3
potential.
we get 3 planning commissioners on a regular basis in our town council.
Yeah, so we should notice it as a planning commission that they would be attending, they could possibly attend, that way we don't ever have a violation. I've seen other communities do that and solve that issue.
We're just having a lot of discussion.
It's done in a public manner, so that's good.
So Misty, what did you want to say?
The problem is that whenever there are members of the same body in the same building, it's considered actually a meeting. And we've only done it for our council. So the 5 of us can have a meeting and discussion, but
Say- Repeat yourself again, you're going in and out, Margaret, Misty. Okay,
what I said was that because there are three people from planning and zoning, that constitutes a quorum. That's the state
okay,
law.
Robin's leaving, Robin's leaving.
Okay.
No longer a quorum, Robin's got it. Okay, so, let's move on. So,
Well, anyway, in July of next year, I will still be on the council and we will revisit this irrespective of what everybody
Yes.
else has said. So,
definitely, we will revisit this because we will have the results of the groundwater protection study that will undoubtedly have an impact on this. And we know that planning commission still wants to work on, this thing about dwelling size. They want to keep working on some of the issues that come up, that some of the unintended consequences, let's put it that way. And so, things will come up a year from now, anyway.
well, and we may be amending it sooner depending on what those consequences are.
That's true. I picture this whole thing as just like our Lulu in general, is a continuing work in progress. No matter, it's just constantly, changing, constantly being amended. So I had written down, here's what I had written down based on what we were saying earlier, which is very close to yours. I'd already written down. I'd already noted 15%, 2,000 on square footage. The only difference between me and you is external ADU versus internal ADU. That's the only difference between you and I. I don't know so I'm going to show you, April, here are the notes I made based on what we talked about. Changing 12% to 15, septic tank from 1,500 to 2,000. And then changing the word casita to ADU, and then just whether or not it's external or internal. That was the only difference between me and Paul. I don't know what your thought was, if you were up to the external, if you wanted external included in the 4,800 limit, or the 15% limit. Where Paul wants it outside, additional, they can build an additional ADU. But I am willing to go along with internal, knowing that this is going to be, we're still gonna be massaging this thing. There's a house in Rio that that was designed with an internal ADU, and it's not near 4,800 square feet. It is such a nice house. They did a beautiful job.
What is the definition of an ADU? What our definition?
I don't know that we have a definition in our code for ADU.
We base it on probably on state.
We would base it on the state definition.
I changed that.
It's 10.9A530 according to Google. They give a definition for an internal accessory dwelling unit. An internal accessory dwelling unit is an accessory dwelling unit created within a primary dwelling within the footprint of the primary dwelling and for the purpose of offering long-term rental.
Okay. Like a mother-in-law's possibly or something like that, that's
Exactly.
attached.
Yeah, the one house I'm referring to, they did such a nice job on that internal accessory dwelling unit. Yes, were you trying to say something, Crystal? Were you trying to get my attention or no?
I thought they did change the code and got rid of casita, when Cameron was chair and changed it to ADU. In our definition.
It's not in the definitions. I just checked.
I can tell you this, I prepared a file. I've got it on my computer at home. I prepared a file for every single time in the last 6 years that casita ordinance has been modified to try to follow what happened with the constant changes with regard to casita. And it was crazy.
I just looked it up. There's no definition of a ADU or dwelling unit accessory or casita
In our code,
in our.
yeah, there's not. Yes, no, he said accessory dwelling unit. I said accessory, they kind of hesitated before he said dwelling unit, but he meant accessory dwelling unit.
Mayor, do you want to make a motion?
No, I don't want to be the person to make the motion, but I will. I don't want to be the person because all I get accused of is being the person who is behind this whole thing. And so for me to make the motion just feeds into that characterization that it's all me when it's really not all me. So I will make the motion. Before I do, what are we doing about outbuildings?
Well, depending on what you,
This section here, what we
I would like to limit to including attached,
well, then it's not attached building.
attached outbuildings only to, including attached.
Okay, because if it's attached, then it's not an outbuilding. To me, an outbuilding is an independent structure. That's to my mind.
Then delete outbuilding.
Okay, that's what I.
And include. That's why I wanted you to make the motion, depending on what you would make the motion, I would maybe amend it depending on what you come up. But I'd like to see it just dealing with the structure itself of living space and not include.
Buildings that are
External,
okay.
not to include anything detached. So
So that-
everything attached.
So that wouldn't be included in the 15% of the total?
No, the 15% it would,
Oh,
but it wouldn't be included in, because the way
the
that
living
reads,
space.
it says 48,000 feet or 15% of living space on it goes.
The parcel, the living space is 4,800 square feet or 15% of the parcel. That's the living area.
Which is greater, and then it says including casitas and any outbuildings. So I see what April's
Okay.
concern is.
So I was gonna make the motion, but before I do, I wanna know what we want to say about and any outbuildings.
Percent of the parcel.
Which is the 1 acre, 6,500.
So the 15%, whichever is greater, includes all of the outbuildings, so that would put a limit. So if you had an acre.
No, he does not want outbuildings included. He wants us to,
I think
he wants us to.
I know, but
accept-
what I'm saying is, if they are included, then on 1 acre, you can have the 6,500 square feet of everything. If they're included, if they're not included, then you could have 10,000 square feet.
Exactly. That's exactly.
And that's what you want.
Well, they'd be limited by septic tank.
Yeah, but outbuildings
and-
don't use.
But the garage, the outbuildings that are,
Many outbuildings are just barns and sheds.
so what she's saying is you can have 6,538 square feet on a lot, on a 1 acre lot. You can have 6,538 square feet of living area. And then unlimited amount of space in a shed or a workshop or a barn. Because those are not living area, and you would have unlimited size that you could build.
Well, isn't that what this says now? Because we're limited to limited area, living area?
I think you are correct. So if we,
If you just put.
yes, okay, I see what you're saying.
If you just
wouldn't
put
even have to
area
change
out
it.
greater and exclude that including casitas and any outbuildings, what does that do?
That,
So that allows you to have 15% of the parcel of just living space, and then you can have as much in outbuildings.
but what he's saying is the way this is written right now, this actually allows for exactly what we're talking about. Because we're only limiting living area. Limiting.
No, because we're including external and outbuildings,
But,
but 15% includes the square footage of those buildings.
but I think by saying we're talking 4,800 square feet of living area or 15% of the parcel, whichever is greater.
Period.
And then delete everything else. And then that allows for unlimited building, other structures that you don't live in.
Other detached structures would be.
Other detached structures could be of any size,
Which
as long as they're all.
if you
living
keep
area.
that certain language, it's still, it's the same reading.
Yes, I agree.
It
Now
just-
that I read it really, really, really closely and how you would interpret this in a lawsuit. Or somebody who's really trying to interpret this so they can build as much as possible, then you actually would say,
It
in
creates
the outbuildings,
confusion.
it just, they're, you can build whatever.
So what we're limiting is the living space, not the other buildings.
That's how this reads. This actually reads that we're only limiting living area. So you would just delete, you would put a period after the word greater.
Correct.
Because this could allow, multiple dwellings
It could allow multiple dwelling units.
as long, but the question is it multiple dwelling units of 4,800 square feet? Or multiple dwellings as long as it does not exceed 15% of the parcel?
It would allow, you could potentially have two dwelling units of 4,800 square feet, but it's gonna be limited by the septic tank, most likely. Because you're not gonna be able to get living area approved greater than 2,000 on the
Okay.
septic tank.
Seven.
So I think our septic tank limitation
Is
and
going
our
to be the
water
limiting factor.
and our water hookup limitation is gonna be the factor that creates now multiple houses on a piece of property. What it's gonna do is create the actual garage, RV sheds, and so on. That would be allowed, but that would not be living space. Correct?
Yes, you would not be able to have a bigger septic, so the septic is
The septic-
truly the limiting factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the size of the building.
It's the septic.
It's a septic. And so then why do we have the square footage? It's to prevent the big mass of building that makes it incompatible to the neighborhood.
To the neighborhood, right? So what's your thought there, April? If we put a period after the
Yeah,
word,
it just makes it confusing in that, including.
Yeah.
what do you, Misty and Marcy, if we put a period after the word greater and strike the rest of that sentence, it says sentence A in 32:12 and 34:14 and 34. In the residence, section A of each of these, if we were to put a period after the word greater and delete the words including casitas and any outbuildings, would this change either of your attitudes toward this ordinance?
I think it's progress and it's better, but I don't know if it's changed my decision.
Okay,
That's the same. I'm the same. That I feel like if we're going to live with this ordinance, it's a nice change, but
okay,
I don't think it's changed my opinion of the ordinance at all.
all right, thank you. So, shall I make the motion?
Make the motion.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve ordinance 24-12. I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2024-12. With the following amendments under section 3. Subsection A, we will change 12 to 15%. There will be a period after the word greater, striking the rest of that sentence. On section B, Septic tank capacity is changed from 1,500 square feet to 2,000 gallons, or 1,500 gallons to 2,000 gallons. In section 5 of this ordinance, subsection A, 12% is changed to 15%. A period is put after the word greater. The rest of that sentence is struck. And under subsection B, the septic tank size is changed from 1,500 gallons to 2,000 gallons. I think I need to amend my own motion.
Well, there hasn't been a second, yeah.
Okay. Before we go on, we just discussed that the way this is written, that you ultimately could have two dwellings of 4,800 square feet on a parcel. The way this is written, they could have two 4,800 square foot dwellings on a
No,
parcel.
because we have 1 unit per acre, right? Requirements in our ordinances.
That is true. We do have a requirement, a limit of 1 home per acre right now.
Well, you can have two buildings, you can only have one dwelling,
Okay,
right?
okay. But the next one,
No wonder, on what April's saying, we limited one dwelling unit per acre, right? You
but
could
we're
have two
letting people,
buildings.
but we're letting people build casitas right and left,
Mhm.
which is another dwelling. Those ADUs are dwellings. They can easily be they're intended to be rented out. Some people just want them for their family to stay in, but they're totally a dwelling. They've got the kitchen, they've got the bathroom, they've got the bedroom, they are absolutely a dwelling.
Yeah,
We are allowing two dwellings per acre when we let people build an ADU. There's no doubt about it.
The limiting factor is the septic system.
So here's what I'm saying, when we look at the septic system, section B. Dwellings shall be, not the parcel, shall be permitted a single septic tank of 2,000 gallons, but dwellings shall be permitted a single septic tank, which means each dwelling on the property could have a single septic tank of 2,000 gallons. Do we want, should dwellings be the parcel? Under B.
Well, it says that originally the following dwelling standards apply to parcels with 1 acre or more.
Yes,
So,
they say that, but what I'm saying is, we're saying each dwelling gets a single septic tank. And if we're going to allow more than one dwelling on a property, then we're gonna end up with two 2,000 gallon septic tanks on a parcel.
well, that's not what we want.
No, that's not what we want. That increases the septic density. It doesn't help with our septic density problems, which our groundwater protection and our wastewater protection studies were designed to fix. So this
So you should maybe
increases,
say parcel.
The parcel
And then it
shall
shall
be
be single septic.
yes, that's what I was going to ask is, and the parcel shall be permitted no more than a single culinary water connection. So should B and C dwellings be changed to the parcel? Yes. What do you think, Paul? You're still cogitating over there?
To be, yes. And
What are you thinking on C?
well, first of all, you said the ADUs must use the same septic. And,
If you look at the town state code,
right,
yes,
So-
external ADUs would be required to use the same septic system. I just want it clear that they can't do this.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what Lauren's one concern was about. But I don't think, his one concern was about if they combine two lots and they've been paying for the standby. I don't know how many standbys we have in Rio de Sion, and I don't see that as really a concern. I understand what he was saying from intellectual standpoint. I don't know if that's really a practical concern. And if it does, then we can always amend this ordinance to address it. So I'm all right with you. going
Leaving the word.
parcel
On both B
Yeah.
and C, okay.
in a manner of compromise. Yes. And then, I'll wait till,
You might want to amend the.
no, I'm not gonna amend it.
Oh.
I just had some follow-up comments, but let's get the motion on the floor now.
Okay, all right, I will, start over with my motion, since it was not seconded. It failed, we're gonna start a new motion. I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2024-12. With the following amendments by the town council. Section 3. A, subsection A, 12% will now be 15%. There will be a period after the word greater, the rest of the sentence struck. Section B, dwellings shall be the parcel, and the size of the septic tank is changed from 1,500 gallons to 2,000 gallons. And subsection C, the parcel. The dwellings becomes the parcel. In section 5, subsection A, 12% is changed to 15%. There's a period after the word greater, the rest of the sentence is struck. Subsection B, dwellings is changed to the parcel, and the 1,500 gallon septic tank is changed to 2,000 gallons. Subsection C, dwellings is changed to the parcel. And I see no other changes that we have discussed. I have no other changes.
I'll second.
Okay. Were you gonna say something, Paul, or?
Yeah,
should we do it for
like I
my-
said before, Michael.
Okay.
I could do it after the vote too.
Okay,
I actually, like I said, I was vacillating and I don't know what the unintended consequences of this is gonna be. So I hope month to month that we have at least the zoning administrator examining to see what happens, or somebody report when there is changes, so we know what effect we've had on the various subdivisions. Well, good and bad. So so any member out there is saying, I can't build what I was gonna build, let us know. So we can kind of monitor what that is.
okay,
Because if there's something that's unintended, then we should figure that out. I think what really swayed me to vote for this, I'm gonna vote aye for it, but what swayed me was the groundwater protection study and what April's concerns are. I think that was the swinging factor in my decision, along with these amendments help with some of the other issues I was having.
okay. So. I will go ahead, even though you said you were going to vote aye, I'm going to now ask you for your vote.
Are we doing individual?
Yes,
Aye.
and Jean is aye, April,
Aye.
Marcy,
No,
Misty,
No,
okay. Thank you, so that ordinance passes. The next, so I will tell planning commission, let's see what we can do about, Rio, because we said we want to see if we can do something for Rio, I think we should. I like Paul's idea that we ask every home builder who comes in and wants to build a home, what impact this ordinance has on their, ability to build the home that they wanted, right? You want to know that? And then, we'll keep track of what plans, what comes in, even though I normally don't keep track of anything that comes in with regard to residential, plans, I always watch commercial, but really not much on the residential unless they're just too big, but I guess, the question is, what impact this will have. So, okay, so we'll follow those, and then you guys are gonna continue working on what you guys were wanting to work on. Okay, so we'll talk about Rio and, what you guys want to work on. Okay, the second thing on the special meeting is to, authorize me to sign the, agreement with Galloway to do the survey. Last week we talked about, this, the survey for the purchase of the church. And, we called the other two engineering firms that we had contacted about survey. And one gave us a price that was less than this, but they could not get to doing the survey until after the, they just could not do the survey in our time limit.
So I
How
would,
much less was that?
It was significantly less, but it didn't matter because they can't get to it.
I'm just
They
curious
just can't do it.
about the price.
Well, I want to make sure, I was concerned that they weren't really, looking at the right kind of survey. For the price difference was so significant, I think they were not doing this type of survey, which is the Alta survey, Alta in SPS land title survey. I think they were just going out to do a survey and stick some sticks in the ground, and they weren't doing this title survey, which is what these guys are doing. And in fact, they asked us for the title commitment document that we had from title company, and I had Heath review it. And Heath told me, go ahead, you can send them the title commitment, but he pointed out that what he saw in the title commitment document was, he told me, go ahead and let's do the survey. The title commitment document shows that the land was donated to the town in 1940. Donated to the church, that the two parcels of land were donated to the church in 1940. But the people who donated the land kept rights to, let me find it. Oh. Okay. He says, the only little point I want to make the town aware of is that when the property was deeded to the LDS Church from Vern and Clara Bullock in 1940, the Bullocks reserved all quote gas, oil, and mineral rights in and on the property, end quote. The Bullocks also reserved an easement for street purposes located 5.5 yards in from the outer boundary to the building parcel on the south and east. This is a non-issue since Bill Street and 100 South have been built and dedicated since then. He says, so my legal opinion is there's no objectionable exceptions to coverage proposed in the title commitment. The purchase should proceed, you're fine to send a copy of the title commitment to the surveyors. So, they are doing a bunch. I am concerned that what Sunrise is the one who gave us the price, quoted them so much less that I'm just like, they cannot be, because I even asked Monica, I said, are you sure you explained to them that I want, this is the survey we're asking for? And she said, I was clear, but they said, they gave us a price of 2,500 each, which would be 5,000, but they cannot get to it in our time frame. So that's what's kind of like, well, that's irrelevant because we need it done in the time frame.
Yeah,
And Bush and Gudgel, we called them and they couldn't do it in the time frame either. They didn't even bother to give us a price because they just said, what's the point? We can't do it in your time frame.
I've done a little bit of research on these Alta land title surveys and they indicate they're 50 to 200% more than just your typical
Survey. So I need authorization to sign this agreement so we can have Galloway,
I move
do
that,
this.
I move that we authorize the mayor to sign the contract with Galloway Engineering for $10,400 to perform the Alta surveys on the two pieces of property that we're purchasing from the LDS Church.
I'll second that.
I will take a roll call vote, because this is, even though it's signing the contract, it's also spending money. So, Misty, what's your vote?
Yes.
Marcy,
Yes.
April,
Yes,
Jean, yes, Paul?
Aye.
Okay, all right. So the special meeting is now finally closed at 8 o'clock. 2 hours, as Paul predicted. That this would last this long, so we can now, we're closing the special meeting and we will open the work meeting. But we will definitely not be able to get everything that's on the agenda for the work meeting, so we'll have to figure out what we want to, out of the things that are on here, which ones do we want to address?
Yeah,
on the work meeting?
and Mayor, thank you for being patient with everybody on this. It was a difficult decision to make, and I appreciate the latitude and opportunity to explore the issues. And when I made that comment, I wasn't even thinking of this being what was gonna take the time. I just thought.
There's too much stuff.
The
There's
rules
too
of
much stuff.
procedure would probably
Yeah.
take the time, so, thank you.
Yes, I thought the rules of procedure would take the most time too.
So, thank you.
So, meanwhile, I really, let me just say this about items B3 and B4, okay? Well, first off, B4, which is the water efficiency standards, I just wanted you guys to see this ordinance that, is before the, planning commission. It was presented to them last night. This has to be adopted, in order for us to join the regional water supply agreement. We're required to adopt this by September 30th. So it was presented to planning commission last night. They talked a little bit about it. And then, if you notice on page 3 of this document where they have, something highlighted in yellow, that is the only question that needs to be answered by, the town for this, here. I'll do this. You just look at my copy right there.
Mayor,
Yes.
before you open conversation, I need to sign off. I have other commitments
Okay.
on vacation, sorry. But
Okay. no
thanks guys for
problem.
all your comments.
Okay, bye. Okay, so I just want you guys to see this. This is, taking exactly the wording from the Water Conservancy District's water efficiency standards. This was a fairly easy, ordinance for our new planner to do because every municipality has adopted this ordinance. And all he had to do was pull it up from some other places. This was fairly easy.
Yeah.
But the only thing that was suggested by planning commission last night is these requirements that have to do with car wash facilities. And then there's some requirements for golf courses. And since we don't have either one in town, last night in the planning commission, he suggested some language to be put in there about the fact that we don't even allow those. And so we're gonna call the Water Conservancy District and see if we can put this, we can amend their language for those two. But this one here that's highlighted in yellow, they need us to establish a number here. And planning commission has discussed that last night. I just wanted you guys to see this. I don't need us to have any further discussion, I just wanted you guys to be aware. And it's gonna come to us for a vote in September.
Yeah, and but the question I have is the applicability of these standards, is it just to new homes coming in?
Yes.
Or what, so existing homes don't have an issue?
Right, that was my understanding last night. I think you asked that last night, didn't you, Darlene? And it was indicated this is only for new homes.
So, a couple of things I was wondering about is, so we didn't, I'm surprised, well, probably this, Washington Conservancy District doesn't include gray water reuse because they're all on.
Culinary?
They're, well, no, they're all on a sewer system.
So, yeah,
So I think it would be important for us to consider using a gray water reuse, like, so when people have a home, you know, with their laundry or whatever, I mean, maybe just give them the option.
In here,
Yeah.
okay, because I can tell you that there was one of my meetings. Someone, Hurricane came in and asked if, on page 4, where it talks about man-made ornamental water features. Hurricane asked if Hurricane could make a change, and they were told no.
Oh, so you can't make any changes?
I don't think they'll let us make any changes, we can ask. But, because we were gonna ask if we could make this changes about the golf course and the car wash facility, since we don't allow either one in town. And, Riker, who's the planner writing ordinance, said he would call the Water Conservancy District and ask about the language we want to put in there and see if they will let us make a change. But I know that Hurricane was denied when they asked to make a change. For Hurricane, they said, no, we're not gonna let each town do, modifications and in each town, and that this is just no, they couldn't make a change. They need some consistency among their vendors.
So it's really interesting, like when they talk about metering, all attached and detached, single-family dwelling units with ground floor square footage shall be separately metered.
Oh,
This
yes,
is for outdoor.
that
right?
was, they discussed that last night.
Oh, I was watching that meeting, that must be.
We asked about metering, sub-metering, what was alternative metering, what was meant by ground square footage. But, they did discuss that last night with him. I have asked, Riker to come to our meeting on Tuesday to talk to us about the subdivision ordinance and explain every place where they're asking us to answer some questions on the subdivision ordinance. And I can have him just talk to us on this one at the same time.
Okay.
So we can ask him your questions, and he might even have gotten answers before then to the questions Darlene raised, which some of them are similar to yours. And so he might have actually even have the answers by then.
Okay.
So I just want you guys to see these, anything highlighted in yellow and on the subdivision ordinance also. There's a few places where there's some words highlighted in yellow, and those are provisions where the town needs to make a decision on this. For example, who's the appeal authority?
Right.
Who's gonna decide this? How much time are we going to allow? He's got everything highlighted in yellow. We have to decide before the subdivision ordinance then goes to the planning commission for their public hearing and vote. So I just wanted you guys to see those two, and that's all I'm gonna say about those tonight.
I didn't see a lot of yellow highlighting on mine, like,
On the subdivision one, you may not have gone through it, but there's not a whole lot.
there isn't a whole lot.
But still, we still have to decide before it goes to planning commission. So I figure that this meeting maybe on Tuesday, we'll be able to come up with the answers to these questions. And then he'll amend these, he'll put in our changes and send it to planning commission. And because they need to have, we don't have to adopt this until the end of the year.
right,
The water efficiency standards are
September, isn't it?
September 30th.
Okay.
This is December 31st. We have more time to work on the subdivision thing. We don't have to have our answers at this Tuesday meeting, but I wanted you guys to just know this, that this is here. We need to make some answers, and I'm gonna have Riker there on Tuesday to explain it to us.
Yeah, and our suggestions would be just so they have something for the public hearings. We're not bound by those because we can change our mind
Correct,
on that.
correct.
So could the, administrative land use authority be a contracted employee, say, or maybe our town engineer, for example, something like
Yes,
that?
we have choices.
Okay.
And so he's gonna explain all those. When he comes, he'll tell us what all our choices are.
Okay.
So, and which was said at those different, workshops that they had, like at the ULCT conference, that talk about subdividing, and, it's just gonna be a repeat of all that, but in the meantime, he'll go over it again with us. Okay, so on to, the discussion, well, never, you know what, let me go on to some of these others before we get into the procedures. I just want to mention on number 8, the Tom Lacoste duplex proposal. I'm gonna jump around here really quickly. The Tom Lacoste duplex proposal, Tom has, a piece of property that he has come up with a design for a duplex. And he has come into the town with his plans, and he met with Gene, and Gene said, well, you know, our codes don't allow multifamily housing, and this is multifamily housing. And so I had seen a letter back several years ago where someone in town had gone to the Southwest Utah Public Health Department and asked about duplexes. And what the Southwest Utah Public Health Department said was, if the septic impact of a duplex is the same as a 5-bedroom, single-family home, what's the they had no problem with it. If they had like a duplex that shared a septic tank, like a 2,000-gallon septic tank, let's say, and you had a duplex that was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and a duplex, let's say each unit was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, this is no different than the impact of water and septic as a single-family home. So what I want us, and what we told Tom Lacoste is, we can't give him approval on this. We would have to decide what we would want to do about duplexes. And so I just wanted to let you guys know that that's what this is.
And of course, then that would require an amendment to our zoning.
Yes, yes, and so he understands all this. He's not gonna be able to just proceed right away.
Yeah.
This would require some talk. But I just wanted you to
Yeah,
know
and-
that's what this
This
is.
is a commercial.
And he's in a commercial zone, but
It is commercial.
it was zoned commercial, it was zoned commercial a long time ago.
It's not all residential, it's commercial.
Yeah, and we have a duplex right up Pocketville Road.
You do.
Yeah,
I know.
Oh, yes, yes, it's
My
right there by the fire
my
station.
wife Karen lived in it for a while.
Oh, did you really? So it's the one by the fire station, yeah. So I just want you guys to know that's what that is. The Palmer rezone request, I'll be really fast, you guys, I had that in there for all of you, just so you could see what that looked like. I just wanted you to be aware. Gene will probably present this at his, well, he's not gonna be here next week, it'll be September, August before he's back, 'cause he's out of town on vacation. But I put this map in here for everybody to see, what he wants to rezone commercial, and the rest of it would stay rural residential. And so he's already talked to Heath, and Heath has told him what kind of thing he would need to go and file with the county to have this partitioned off. And then he would come in and ask for a rezone. So it would not be this entire parcel. They're going to partition off some of it, but I just wanted you guys to be aware. And that's all this is.
One thought I have about that is how do we prevent the rest of that being rezoned commercial, because it will become adjacent to that, and so.
Well, okay, we can talk about that with them, but they want to do workforce housing down there. It's gonna be affordable, the whole affordable housing.
And so the question is, why are, I guess Heath is saying you gotta partition it off before you request a zone change?
Well, because it's one big piece of, one parcel.
I mean, I guess couldn't they come in and say, we're requesting this zone change contingent, our partition, we will partition it off contingent on.
Well, they called and asked, how do we proceed? We wanna do this, and I had them, because he is friendly with the, engineer who's
Right.
been doing this. I said, you guys just talk, call Heath, because he had called and talked to Crystal. Crystal called and talked to Heath. And then she told,
Exact same thing that.
and she told him this, and then they wrote again and said, how do we proceed? And we're like, we already told you how to proceed. So I just said, you know what? Call Heath, talk to Heath, you guys know each other, because this guy was the town engineer for Tokerville.
Yeah, and
So they know each other, so I'm like, just call and talk to each other.
as long as they know that if they go to the expense of partitioning, that doesn't guarantee them.
No, they were told
It's
that,
just the proper step, though, that we would require anybody to do.
but if your thing is, you might wanna come in and find out if we're even gonna give you commercial first before you go and do the partition. I can call Jared, who's the guy here, and, Jared Bates, and say, tell him what you're saying.
Well,
And say, you know, you might wanna come in.
I
and
was
get
just
a little
thinking
more.
overall, you know. But it doesn't matter how they proceed, as long as they understand that
There's no guarantee.
there's no guarantee.
But I brought this up because you guys, I did have a Shirley Hall's zone change, for us on my initial agenda had us to talk about Shirley Hall's zone change and what the issues are now that short-term rentals have been taken out of commercial. And you brought up cottage commercial the other day, and I'm like, wait a minute, I thought we were gonna remove all lodging from commercial. So why do we even need a cottage commercial zone if we're going to remove lodging from commercial? We don't need it.
I brought up light commercial.
Okay,
Cottage commercial, and.
what's the difference between commercial and light commercial?
Well, that's how we're gonna define it, but the uses are not as extensive as commercial. So, but, and I looked at her approval, that was in February, so.
Yes,
The
yes.
6 months is till August.
Well, except I know I had said that I thought we would be done with what we needed to do by June. And so even though we talked 6 months, I said, oh yeah, by June we'll be done. And of course, we're not. And, so they called and asked me to take it off the agenda for tonight because they were out of town. And would I put it on Tuesday's meeting? I said, fine, I'll put your zone change issue, the halls, just for us to talk about.
Just to talk about.
But I brought this up because I'm like, okay, they called and wanted to know, we wanna rezone this commercial. I'm like, okay, well, we're already having an issue with this zone, this property that wants to be zoned commercial. Do we wanna talk about them at the same time? Because this might be a different commercial zone than the light commercial zone, and what exactly is it that you're thinking of? So I just thought we would have a little discussion about it.
And I know Ronman was thinking of a C1, C2, C3.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they've done in respect to that. So that would be their consideration. What I may do is maybe I'll draft something quickly before Tuesday that lists a possible light commercial or business district. I do know that Lee Ballard years ago had drafted
Something similar.
village commercial.
Yes, she did. And that was kind of modeled, I think, on Springdale's village commercial.
Yeah, I have no
I
idea,
think it
but that
was.
was one that's out there too, that at least planning commission may want to look at.
Okay, but in any event, I wanted everybody to be aware that this is coming. Cause I had told you guys more than once this was coming, and now they're ready to go.
Yeah.
And he told me they wanted to proceed on this, but they're still working out what they're going to do with the affordable housing down here. And so they weren't ready to, come to us, and I said, we don't even have any kind of standards for affordable housing anyway right now. So
Well,
take your time on that.
Yeah,
So that's what that is. So let's see, anything else? So I said Tom will cost duplex proposal, the Palmer request for zone. So that leaves for us the discussion of procedures and then your DRC procedure. Do you want to go ahead and talk about the DRC thing first so we can put it on the agenda next week?
Yeah, right, well, I've already drafted the ordinance.
Yeah, I know, we've got
So
it
the
here.
question, so what you should put on the agenda is to, refer that to the planning commission,
Okay,
because it's gotta
Yeah.
go through them. So refer to planning commission to vote on it, and the proposal, I think I mentioned it before, is there's a disagreement over the interpretation of public body,
correct.
and this eliminates that, it states that, DRC is a public body which will require posting of notices pursuant to the open meeting act.
Yes, I knew that was what all this was.
So minutes will be taken at that meeting then by.
Yes,
Someone, oh, by the way, Kim will not be able to do that because she and Jim both resigned today. They are done with working. They are finally, they're like, we're done with working. We're ready to fully retire. And, they've got a lot of travel plans coming up and they were just like, we're retired. And so, we have to go, we have to immediately,
when is it effective? Are they doing?
August 30th. They've given us it so that if we can find replacements quickly, they can train their replacement. Because Kim definitely needs to train her replacement, given all the software that she uses and what she does. Her job absolutely needs some training for whoever comes in. They can't just walk in, sit down and do
Good
it.
for them for making a decision
Decision
to
to
fully
retire.
retire.
Yeah.
I-
So.
I didn't make that decision because I'm sitting up here.
Yeah, no,
I was sitting there thinking the same thing.
It's like, you're not retired from this. I know, it's like I told them today, I said, you know, I was perfectly happy being, off the town council and all this. I had all this free time. I said, I have no free time anymore. So yeah, working. How's this happen? So,
Well, I can give you a little bit of free time if we approve the city manager. Sorry, you open the
Okay.
door. You open the door.
okay, I've got to be careful what I say these things. Okay, so, I will put this on the agenda for us to refer to planning commission. I'm still gonna put on for us to talk about the light commercial zone that you I'm gonna put on the agenda for us to talk about the Darlene Hall zone change. And this potential zone change from, I'm talking about Tuesday's meeting. I'm gonna put on there for a discussion item about light commercial and for Darlene Hall
I
zone change.
think, I just think if you put those two items on for discussion, that's gonna raise the light commercial, because my opposition to where Darlene's in there, and my opposition to this, as I understand it, is the connection to the neighborhoods. And my position has been, since I've been on the council, is that I don't like commercial next to the neighborhood. We need to think of some kind of.
And I
So,
agree
so
with
if you
that.
put those two,
Okay.
those two on discussion
Uh-huh.
for that, then that will raise up the possibility of those other zones.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, so I'm gonna put those
Yeah,
on.
if you want specific discussion on light commercial or C1, I think that's a work session issue.
Okay.
With
All right.
the planning commission.
Okay, but I just want you to know, I'm gonna put it on because they
Okay.
asked me to move that.
That's fine.
Okay, all right. Then I had a request from Tom, Labrie, that they have called 3 times today asking if we were going to put on the town council agenda the, final plat that was discussed at planning commission last night. What happened is Labrie flew in for this meeting thinking that it would go from planning commission to town council. They looked at our agenda. I mean, they looked at our calendar, saw this and then this. So he flew in and is here in town, and they asked, are you putting this on? Are you putting this on for us to vote on? And you and I talked about it last night. I mentioned putting that on, and you seemed hesitant for me putting this on the agenda, but I have no objection to putting that on the agenda.
Well,
And I would like to go ahead and have us move it.
when you mentioned that, they hadn't, the planning board hadn't yet made a.
No,
decision.
they had not yet made a
They have
decision.
not yet made a
Okay.
decision on it, and so what I said is, we have 45 days.
Yes, but now that they've made a decision, we could put this on the agenda for Tuesday. And so if Labrie, I want to make sure that if I put this on the agenda, that we are going to move it to a vote, because he's come here, he's flown in for this meeting from wherever, I think he lives in California, that if I tell him I'll put it on the agenda and he stays in town, and then there's a motion to table it for us to do whatever, then I just don't know when.
Well,
I thought that he said they had to provide some documentation on,
I don't think so.
on how like CCNRs basically, because.
that was a condition.
Who is some conditions, because, so they have this septic.
There were
system.
two conditions. One, that the town would extend the preliminary plat deadline to yesterday's meeting. And what was the second?
The other one was that they would have to have their CCNRs to Heath by the final plat.
By the,
So they need to have them by Tuesday to Heath. And I made that clear to them when I talked to them
today.
asking them, and they said they have the actual CCNRs done. They mentioned that at the meeting, the CCNRs were already done.
Okay.
They just didn't submit them yet. They're done.
So,
Did we ever really have a preliminary plat?
no, according to what we went over all of this last night. My God, they talked about it an hour. That a preliminary plat is what they call a preliminary site plan.
Oh, that concept drawing, are you talking about?
Well, it's several pages.
No.
It's all paper put together,
No,
and several
it was one
pages.
page. No, it was one page.
Whatever.
The original concept plan, the planning and zoning approved, that went ahead before anybody saw anything else was one.
Okay, so basically my
It was
question
the
is
March
this, are we
21st.
going to rehash all of this at our town council meeting on Tuesday after planning commission just went through this for an hour? I just want to let Labrie know. They're questioning, is it on the agenda, on the agenda, on the agenda?
Can we
Will
review the
enforce this?
CCNRs first before that, though? I mean, shouldn't we be able to look at the?
Just tell them, you can
Well,
let
I
them know.
took
I'm
my
gonna
one
put it
by
on the
Monday.
agenda.
I took my one by Monday, that they're supposed to CC me with them to Heath, and I
Okay.
went by Monday.
Okay, you can let him know, I will put it on the agenda. It will be on the agenda, but he cannot assume that it's gonna be passed by the town council on
Yes,
Tuesday.
and-
That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, and
Tell.
I think that's legitimate. I'm not
Well,
gonna
I
guarantee.
have to tell them it's gonna be passed or not, I'm not.
No, I'm just saying, let
it's
him
gonna be on the
know.
agenda.
Okay. I just wanted to understand that it may not be voted on. That's all I want him to know. I'm not saying it's gonna be passed, I'm not saying it's gonna be denied. I just want him to know it may not be voted on,
It's,
period.
it's a standard town, it's on the agenda for motion and vote.
Yeah.
Doesn't
It's
mean it's
not-
gonna get a
Doesn't
motion
mean
and vote.
that we're not gonna continue it for another month or not within the
Right,
And
45
so
days.
I just don't want him, if he's here in town, I don't want him thinking, oh, I'm gonna get this on Tuesday night. He needs to know it may not even get voted on. He may want to stay in town for the meeting so he can attend it. He may wanna just go back home. I don't know what he wants to do, but at least give him that option.
We
the
don't,
option.
we don't
He
know
can
what
decide.
all the council members'
So don't do it.
concerns are gonna be.
He just
And
needs to
it may most likely make it done, but we just can't guarantee it.
Right.
We can't guarantee any applicant that it's going to unless there's a statutory deadline.
Okay, so now that leaves us with the last two things that have to do with procedures for town council and planning commission meetings. So, one of the things, I think the easier thing to dispose of is the thing I have on here about planning commission. Paul had said that he did not think it was appropriate for us, or that we even could make any decisions on planning commission rules of order and procedure until we amend chapter 4 in full. You and I discussed this. Okay. So I think that's an easier issue to dispose of
Yeah,
than, so,
and then I would assume that on Tuesday, we would just refer the changes to planning commission for their recommendation.
yes, and then with this new procedure with the planner, I would be then having Riker write the ordinance,
Okay,
okay? And then, how did you think it went last night? I thought it went really nicely with Riker presenting that water efficiency standard ordinance to you guys and the way you discussed it.
And that was an easy one because it was a template.
Uh-huh.
I will wait and see how he does on ones that are more unique to our town.
this will be a test.
Yeah,
And I don't want to not have the option of writing any ordinance.
well, we're not taking that away. That is not
Well, from what you
completely taken away. But it is, my goal is to have him write the bulk of the ordinances. And if there's something that you just absolutely have to write yourself, then you can work on it yourself. But I do not want, I am so frustrated that in 7 months, so many ordinances that I wanted done have not gotten done. It's not anything on you, but I'm just talking in general. And, so my thought was it would work a lot easier with this planner to write the ordinances, bringing it to the planning commission, have a discussion, what do you guys wanna do? I think it would improve the flow. All I'm trying to do is improve the flow. So on chapter 4,402F. This is the one where you and I talked about, oh, you're good, okay.
All right. I don't know, you had prepared the highlighted areas, right? But I think last time. You gave us a last meeting handout with the highlighted areas
I
that you
didn't,
wanted changed.
I didn't think I did.
Yeah, you did. I just don't have it with me.
I have to go back and look at last
But
month's
that's all right.
work meeting,
Yeah.
or when I did that. But what you and I talked about the other day, when we were talking about, yesterday, when we were talking about potential changes to town council procedure, and I brought up potential changes to planning commission procedure and things I would like to change about their procedure, and you said, well, until we change basically this 4.02F, we can't do that.
Right,
So what I am proposing at this time is that there be a change, that we make some sort of amendment to 4.02F. And what you had talked about yesterday is that the planning commission can, create rules and regulations that are subject to approval by town council.
yes.
And so I would, just take this section and say, and we could add the, somewhere we're gonna put the words that these are subject to approval by town council. And the last potential and I brought this up in a meeting, but I've never really pursued it, but it's something for us to talk about, is the, language in here that says, let me search for the word. Where does it say that the planning commission votes for the chair? It's in here that they vote for their own chairman, and they do it every year. It's in here where they choose their own chairman, and, there it is, D. 402D. The planning commission shall elect from its appointed members a chairperson and a chairperson oh, that's a type of temp, not term, whose term shall be for 1 year. And so when I talked with other towns, their town council chooses the chairman, they do not let their commission choose their own chairman. And so I wanted us to consider that. So the procedures and the chairman, other than that, there's nothing in here I would change.
Well, when you made your proposal for that particular change, I also mentioned to do away with alternatives.
Yes, alternates, yes, you did,
Alternates.
yes. You, and I forgot that you had proposed that we get rid of alternates and, this thing that allows the town council to appoint, the chairperson.
Yeah, and I don't mind that going to the planning commission to make a recommendation on that. I'm not sure if I'm there yet on us appointing the chairperson. I may be all right with us approving the chairperson, but I think the appointment should actually come from the planning board to appoint their own chair.
So maybe approve the chair just like we approve the rules of procedure.
Yeah, I agree with Paul on that. I think that-
Yeah. I think that should be the planning commission's decision, but if we want oversight, then subject to.
Yeah,
approval.
we need some
Subject
oversight.
to approval of the town council.
We need some oversight so that when things are not working, we can do something about it.
So their term's only 1 year, so.
Yes, but you could have 1 year of nothing happening,
Yeah.
which is what's happening kind of now, is that nothing is, that I want to see get done is getting done. So,
Well, yeah, to reframe that, there's a lot happening, but you're right, things that you want in a
we've got
certain
things that
way
need to move.
to get to move and hopefully,
I mean, like
Right.
today, this got all the way down to the day before the deadline, and it should have been, it could have been done by April.
I'm hoping Bronwyn's new procedure that she created will help us work through that. So I assume.
Well, we will find out what this new procedure is when they send us this procedure for us.
No, she came up with she sent us the form to say when you.
Oh, that, yeah.
And hopefully that will help that process. And this, and we haven't really done anything, so these two new ordinances that we're gonna send to them will test that process.
Yes, yes. Okay,
And I expect then they will take it up, pursue it to their process and send it back. So hopefully that will get all resolved and we won't have much of an issue.
okay, so, now, cause I can, let's discuss the town council, procedures. And then we'll come up with the, planning commission procedures, cause I can tell you that I can tell you right now, one of the things that when they review their, procedures, Broadland wants to remove from their procedures the clerk's ability to put anything on the agenda. She wants it only the chairman can put things on the agenda. And I will oppose that because if we have this 10-day rule to give agenda items to the clerk, and we end up, and I discussed this with you yesterday, that if we have a 10-day rule and we don't get things for planning commission within that 10 days, and the clerk is not allowed to put something on the agenda, then there's no meeting.
And
And if the clerk can put things on the agenda, then there can be a planning commission meeting with the stuff that she's put on the agenda.
and
But
so
if we take away her ability, then we're stuck.
let's wait to see what the rules say.
Well,
Instead
Okay,
of
I just
discussing it
want-
now, yeah.
I just want you to know, I know that that's her proposal, the rest of the planning commission may disagree with that. And it may not make it into the
Sure.
procedure, but I
Yeah.
know that's her
And,
proposal.
and so I think your concern is noted, and so then the planning commission will talk about it.
Okay, well, I
Let's
want
see
to
if-
bring this up so that they know this is my concern, and I now don't have to go and try to bring my concern to the planning commission. At least one planning commissioner knows my wording, and that the clerk needs to be able to put things on the agenda.
And then if the changes to the ordinance come up, then their rules will have to. be-
For example, if we are complying with. So if we had, what?
She has to.
So I'm afraid I've just been misquoted and I need to correct that.
What did I miss? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead and tell us what we talked about.
What we talked about in our extensive meeting was that the clerk should be able to put on anything on the agenda that she legally has responsibility for. So if a zone change comes in, anything that she has to legally put on there, she should be able to put that on the agenda. It would be nice if she would notify us of that, because we try to make plans for our meetings. Excuse me, I ran, so.
Okay.
No, I'm not finished, excuse me.
Okay.
I also said that I would like the mayor and anyone else who's putting anything on an agenda of the meeting that is being run by the planning commission to just notify us of that. I do think whatever goes on the agenda needs to go through the chair, whomever it is, before it's placed on the agenda. Not restricting Crystal's legal obligation in any way, but just having accountability and us being able to take responsibility for what's on our agenda, because we know what's on there. So that's all. It's not all the way as before. I'm sorry if you misunderstood.
Okay. All right, so now we're moving on to the town council, and I put on the SharePoint today some suggested procedures I'd come up with. I put it on SharePoint. You may not have seen it because I did it today. I told you yesterday I was working on some procedures.
I haven't seen what you did today.
Okay, well, as I said yesterday, I know we're not gonna come to any kind of conclusion today. That, so I told you I was gonna work on it yesterday. I did not get to it until today. And I worked on it first thing this morning, and then I put it up on SharePoint for my thoughts, and I did not know, and I know you had things you were worried about. And I know Marcy has things she was worried about, but I do not know if April or Misty had any things about the procedures for town council meetings. I don't know if there's anything Crystal would want to change, any proposals, but what are yours, Paul?
Well, since we got about almost 8:45, and I haven't looked at your.
Oh, no, I just want to know what yours were.
So-
We can,
Well, I kind of want to, well, here's what my suggestion would be, is for us to take a look at yours, and then each of us submit whatever changes we want. And then that way we can look at everybody's, put a deadline as to when they should be done, and then for the whatever, in July, August session, we can then have written copies of everybody's.
Okay, 'cause
And we
mine-
can use yours as the base to come
Well-
up with.
you may not like mine at all.
Yeah,
But I can tell you that I pretty much took this and just set it aside and start it fresh. Because there's so much in here I don't like.
Yeah, and
That it was easier to just rewrite and start, almost like a repeal and replace type thing. Because I hate these rules of procedure, I hated them. And you can see that when we, voted on this resolution back then, I was not there that day. And, cause it shows that I was absent when this was adopted, but I had told Bruce at the time that I disliked these procedures, but they all voted it in, and there we have it.
yeah, but I'd like to work off one common document and then have that be the
Okay.
document that we look
And
at.
I like that.
And then we say, I think these are the changes we need to make to it.
Okay,
Because, my changes will all depend on what that base document is. And so, but generally, I can tell you what kind of the things I want to see, but, I think if we take a look at that and bring them all to, if everybody has a chance to write their changes to your base document and send it in, and then we distribute it out at the work session and then work on that, might be the best way to proceed.
okay, that's fine with me. So, I have put this on as a PDF, but I can change it to be like a Word document. If you guys want this as a Word document to work on, or did you want to just write all over it? Because what I'm trying to do.
Doesn't matter to me either
Okay,
way.
because what I did not like in this, original resolution from 2016 is all this stuff about making motions and it's totally copied from Robert's Rules of Order.
Right.
And I do not like Robert's Rules of Order. I don't like formality in meetings. I like our work meetings because we can sit here and we can talk and it's very informal and I love it. And then we get into our work meeting, our regular meeting, and all of a sudden it's so rigid and it's procedure and I hate it. And it makes me feel constricted and that we can't, there has to be this motion and there has to be that motion. We have to do this. We have to, I like informality. And so in here, you'll find a little bit more informal and not so much. And it just says that we will use Robert's Rules of Order in the absence of some other rule, then we'll use Robert's Rules of Order. But otherwise, these, I have just very informal type motions.
So one thing I was wanting to maybe address is when we have, public hearing comments. And the people don't necessarily need to be in attendance, they can submit a letter. But I've noticed a lot of times we don't necessarily read those letters.
We don't have to.
Do we want to say anything about that?
Well, we can say things like, we've got some letters from several people and the gist is blah, 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 but we are not under any obligation, even under state law, to read those into the record. And so if they do, like Lori has sent her comments sometime and asked somebody to read them for her, since she's not here, that's how they get read.
Okay.
But we have zero obligation under state code to read people's written comments into the record. We get a copy, they're here for us to look at, but there's nothing that says we have to read them into the record.
Okay.
So,
But with,
but we can talk about it.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that.
with, I don't really, I'm not a big proponent of reading somebody's statement in the record. It's dry, we've all read it, hopefully we've read it. But I think what we may want to do is acknowledge that we received emails from X, Y, and Z.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I don't have any
So
problem with
that way, everybody knows that there's an email and it was received, or we got this letter, on that. And kind of the stuff that I was thinking of is, we probably should explore, I don't know if this is the way we want to go, but let's explore the suggestion that was made at the training session where the recording becomes the minutes and all you're doing is hitting the spots as to.
Yes, I would love to be able to do
That
that.
way you're not, either that or you buy software that that takes everybody's words and doesn't forbid them.
Well, yeah, the problem with that software, as I've discovered, because I've tried even sometime in our meetings to turn on some software that will do that, it can't hear for
It
anything.
can't hear.
It just can't
So-
hear, and we've got terrible acoustics. in
So
this
I like that suggestion at the training. So let's have that as a discussion in minutes. There's some minor stuff and I can put that out later instead of tonight, or if you wanted to go through some of the minor points, I can do so, but I thought
I
maybe.
just thought you might give us a summary. I didn't know if you had like a whole lot of changes, or
No,
maybe
I
you
was-
just had 5 things.
No,
or
I was working
what?
off
Just had
this.
5, you can
I
tell us.
was working off the resolution
Uh-huh.
you provided.
Yeah,
And then as we went through it, I would then raise some various issues. So the one issue I saw was the minutes that we need to take care of. The second one that I would also raise is when we have public comment. You cannot comment on an item that's on the agenda.
uh-huh.
That used to be in state law. That's been removed from state law.
Has it?
Yes, I think so. So if somebody can point me to where that is in state law, then fine, but I think that's been removed. I don't mind a citizen coming in and if you got a long agenda, forcing them to sit through the whole meeting to make their comment on an agenda item. If they want to make their comment in that public comment period, I'm all right with it, provided they understand they don't get a second chance. You get one chance and that's it.
Well, the one
But
thing,
that creates some more formality that you don't
Right.
like, but let's discuss that next when we do.
because the one thing I'll say about. One thing I get frustrated with when people come in and open forum and they make a comment, they come in and they make a comment and then they leave. And then we may get to it later in the meeting to address what their issue was. And they're not here to hear it because they left. And I'm just like, why do you do that?
Yeah.
Or we have a public hearing and people will come up to the public hearing and then they leave. And then we open the public meeting and we discuss it and we answer their question and they left.
Yeah, and I'm all right with that,
Okay,
because that's their decision.
to do that.
And
Well,
what I
it
don't
just
like
makes
to
me
do.
upset because I had a good answer for them and then they didn't hear it.
They might watch it on Zoom.
They might, I don't know.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Sorry, I've been
I was
waiting for
gonna
a
ask
break.
you-
I've
I
been
was gonna
waiting and
ask you
waiting
in a
and
minute.
waiting. So I appreciate that we're discussing this, and yes, I do have my concerns and things I want us to address, but in the interim, until something is decided or voted on or established, Jean, maybe you can help with this. Just something that's conflicting is the town's website. There's a citizen participation page, and it says that written comments need to be submitted online 3 days before council meetings. But then when
Yes.
we have, and that says for public meetings / hearings. But at the same time, when we have a public hearing scheduled, the agenda says that comments need to be submitted 1 day prior to the meeting. So those two messages that are out there are conflicting and confusing.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that's probably just a simple language change.
Yeah, I think
And the website.
okay, I think the 3-day thing. The town used to enforce that 3-day thing. I know when Monica was clerk, she used to complain about people sending in their comments the day of a public hearing. And it was too late to get copies to and it was like, no, it needed to be there 3 days in advance. So we'll work that out.
Yeah,
And
I
the
couldn't make that change. Sorry, Marcy, I couldn't make that change to 24 hours.
Okay. And then-
Before the meeting.
Yeah, I'm concerned about how we're handling written minutes. I think it's great, or not minutes, sorry, written comments. I think it's great. I want to see him. I want to hear from the public. I want to hear from citizens.
Well,
But
Well,
if
we all get the written comments in our
Yes.
folder, so we see them.
But let me explain that issue, my issue with it. It's not getting them. It's the fact that we put out an agenda and we advertise that comment will be accepted for anything not on the agenda, yet we're receiving written comments for items that are on the agenda, yet we're not receiving public verbal comment. And I think that could be, people think that's not fair. People were able to comment and we heard them, yet they weren't allowed to speak. And I think when somebody sees that on the agenda, that it's not, public comment is not accepted, that discourages them also from submitting a written comment.
And Marcy, that was kind of what I was saying, that I agree with that.
Well, if
That
people
they can say anything they want on the agenda at public comment.
Right.
If people had a complaint about it, why has no one come and said anything to me? I mean, nobody said anything to me about this. You guys. are the
I've
first ones
heard,
to speak last
I've
time.
received complaints.
Yeah.
Well, nobody's told me. I mean, my God, why do these people complain to
Well,
you guys and they don't ever say anything to me? It really pisses me off.
What part of the problem is that was an old provision in state law. And so the fire board does this too. They provide that you can comment on anything that's not on the agenda item. That's a hangover from state law, and I cannot find that provision anymore. So if that provision is gone, then we can allow people to talk about anything on the agenda.
That's fine, but that's not what my complaint is. My complaint is that people apparently are calling you guys to complain, and I don't know anything about people complaining about these things until we have something like this, and then you guys tell me, I'm like, nobody told me there was complaints.
Yes,
It's news to me.
and that is.
How am I supposed to fix these things if nobody talks to me about it?
That's where we get the council comments, so some people will bump into somebody on the street and say, oh, by the way, you need to.
Well, it makes it look like I'm not dealing with things when I don't even know that's a problem.
Are you talking about at the bottom of the agenda where it says, is that what you're talking about, Marcy?
No.
It's at the top. It's right under the logo.
Right under the logo on our agenda?
Yeah.
Where does it say anything on our agenda?
Jean, I was referring to public hearing notices.
Oh,
Oh, it
okay.
says, so it says public comments for public hearings may be made at the meeting in person or submitted one day prior to the meeting.
For public hearings,
Well, it's on the public hearing notice.
on the public hearing,
Right.
not public meeting.
Right.
Public
Or
hearing.
Right, because it's only on the public hearing notice. That's why.
Right. So
Still.
if you look at the
Still.
two,
Go
you look
ahead.
if you look at the two pieces of information side by side, you'll see the conflicting message. One says 3 days, one says
Oh, you're
1
talking
day.
about.
Yes, I understand. I'm just objecting to the fact that you guys are being told people's complaints and I am not. And then it looks like I'm not taking care of things, but I didn't know there were any complaints. So,
Well, we get a complaint from someone.
There's a lot of things that I don't know about, so I guess it's just.
I think it's a
how it
matter that
goes.
citizens go to one person and not the other, because there's a lot of things that I know Marcy and April and you hear that I don't. It's just a matter who they talk to. And that's part of the way local government works.
I do understand that, but somehow there's got to be a way for me to know that people are complaining about things so that I can take care of them. How am I supposed to take care of them when I don't know?
Well, then I think it's our responsibility to let you know, spread, that's what I thought council comments were also.
Yeah, but that only happens like once a month.
Yeah.
And then if you guys have heard complaints for 3 weeks and then 3 weeks later, or 4 weeks later, you get told in a meeting, oh, by the way, so-and-so told, I had this complaint, this complaint, this complaint. Well, how long ago was that? Oh, a month ago.
Well, hopefully we've been
I've been
sending
taking
it to
care. No, I'm not hearing anything. I hear it when you guys bring this up.
Well, for example, I sent you the one on, complaint about the neighborhood. You know,
Yes,
So,
yes,
so,
you
yeah,
sent me that.
yeah,
Yes.
so. I think maybe we need to do a better job at least letting you know what the complaints are. So that's a
Maybe if there's
fair.
complaints, maybe direct them to the website to fill out a complaint.
Because if they would go to the website, fill out the complaint, I get it. I get that in my email. When anybody fills out that online form,
And then
I
you
get
can
it.
take care of it.
So I get an email with, this form was filled out on the town website. And I get an email, I look at it, I go, oh, okay, and it has the person's email address, and when I get those, I generally write back right away, and I reply, they're like, oh, thank you. And then these others, I don't know anything about them.
The other two items that when we discussing this on August is, one is, I think we need to have some type of, just a prohibition in our rules of procedure that prohibits us from receiving texts or emails during the meeting,
Oh, for sure.
electronic.
I don't like that. I didn't even want cell phones on the table.
And I understand the need to have cell phones on the table because some of us use that to look at us. If they don't have a computer, they'll look at the statute, or they're waiting for something from the daughter or something. That's fine, just as long as we have in our rules of procedure, the prohibition from receiving electronic communications about anything on the agenda. And then the other item I'm gonna push is, I hope that we go back to what you started 2 years ago, which was comment on agenda items that weren't consent or administrative proceedings, but
Letting the public make
let the
comments.
public
Yeah.
make comments before each item.
And even though it's not on the agenda, I've tried to let the public make comments on things that are on the agenda. If I see them raise their hand or they want to say something, I will let that happen.
But if I like the way you did when you do it on agenda, people know, then they can have that comment.
Yeah,
So I'd like that, what you did 2
put
years
that back
ago.
on.
And yeah, and we'll have to work through, there are some items that are inappropriate. Work session, you don't need public comment. If you got a presentation, you don't need public comment, you can make that on.
And one thing I used to have on the agenda that I stopped doing, I only did it for like maybe 3 months, but I liked the thing. And I would have considered going back, which is saying, when there's an item on the agenda, who was the person who proposed
Yes.
that ordinance?
Because
Because I think the public should know, this was Paul, this was April, this was
I like
Marcy,
that,
this was
yeah.
Misty, this was Jean, this was somebody else.
Agree.
This was somebody from
It
planning.
creates
commission
accountability.
Or whoever.
It creates
It's
accountability.
Darlene.
Yeah. And the other two suggestions, and this will be for our discussion when we're talking August. One is, when we do the Pledge of Allegiance, is to look out in the audience and see if there's any veterans, or ask if there's any veterans in the audience, and have them lead us in the pledge.
Okay,
That, I mean, we don't have to do that, that's one of my suggestions, because sometimes like Kent was there, he's a vet.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, and you get different vets that you recognize, and I'll just say, if there are any vets in the audience, yes, then would you be willing to lead us in the pledge of allegiance? I think that's a nice
I'll
touch.
try to remember that. It's not something
Yeah.
that will come to me
And,
automatically to think of that.
and the other thing that we can
You'll have to
discuss,
remind me.
and we'll have a bigger discussion, I think next week, or next month, but I'll raise it. Because we're in, I know what your hesitancy is about having an invocation. But because of where we are in our history, even if we don't call an invocation, just call it a moment of silence. Just so if somebody wants to say a prayer to themselves, they can before the meeting. It doesn't involve anybody else. It's just a moment of silence. It's 10, 15 seconds, then you move on. That, and we don't need to discuss it today.
No,
I
I
think
was just
that the
gonna say,
proposal now.
You
is-
said, I was just gonna say, you said a moment of silence, and after 15 seconds, we move on. It's like, oh, well, that wasn't a moment, but okay.
Yeah, not a full minute, but yeah, what I've seen happen in other communities is that they say, oh, it's just listed as a moment of silence, moment of silence, for individual prayer or meditation underneath. And then the mayor says, okay, we'll have a moment of silence. All right, let's move, let's start the agenda. So give somebody a chance, especially we're in a very religious community. The history is based on it, and we have different faiths, and that way we're not
Okay.
conflicting against particular.
I will say this. I would want to look out in the audience and see if there's, right now, we have Darlene. I don't know that Darlene cares if we have a moment of silence, maybe she does, I don't know, but, so. That we may have people in here that, I don't know, we'll talk about it.
Let's talk about it. And those were be mine, I think I got everything there, but those were my thoughts.
Okay.
It's for us to discuss.
I had one more thing I didn't get to finish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you and steal your time.
That's okay. I was just wondering if we might be able to also discuss, the public notices going out more than 24 hours in advance.
Public notice of what?
Adding our
meeting.
meetings and our
Well,
agenda.
sometimes there's no way, it's like this last one, well, we posted our meeting notice this time, I mean, our
Yeah.
agenda on Thursday.
I just wondered
Maybe
if that's
last
something
Thursday.
we could possibly discuss. I understand, we're gonna talk about getting things to the clerk for the agenda. 10 days, that's the rule. But that goes to the clerk and she's got everything and she's got the agenda, yet the town council
Some-
doesn't.
Okay, sometimes just because the office is closed on the weekend and the meeting is on Tuesday, there's just times where it's not intentional, it just happens that we can't get the agenda posted before Monday.
Like,
It's
for
not,
instance, this, like, right now. I know almost everything that's going on the agenda, I have things that are going on the agenda,
but today is
but
Thursday.
today is Thursday, your
And the
work
office is
meeting.
closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we.
And so
meet-
Monday I'll be posting your agenda.
Monday, the agenda goes out.
I think
So
there's
there's
something,
issues.
I think there's something already in the existing rules about that. I saw something that says, notices should go out by this time. And if you say should, that doesn't mean it
They have
must.
to, yeah.
They should. So we endeavor to send them out 5 days,
But this
6
is-
days ahead.
So this is why I try, my work meetings, the agenda on my work meetings is generally all the topics that are gonna be on the town council meeting. So that if you look at the agenda for the work meeting, you know what the agenda for the town council meeting is, because we just discussed everything. It's not gonna be that way this time, but it normally is the way it works. And the whole point is, the work meeting is for us to have discussions preliminarily of what's on the agenda, so that when we get in the meeting, sometimes I'll ask everybody, so we discussed this on Thursday, has anything changed since then? And the answer is usually no. I'm like, okay, let's vote, let's move on to the next item. And so that the meeting moves faster. And so if you know what we talk about in the work meeting, you generally know what the agenda is for the town council. For planning commission, Bronwyn and I were talking the other day that the way the work meetings are for planning commission are in no way the same as what a work meeting is for the town council, because mine is a preliminary review of the town council meeting, and the work meetings for planning commission are working on ordinances, which is just totally a different type of meeting or agenda, whatever you want to call it. So. Anyway. You're looking at something, Paul, was there something you want to say?
No, I was just trying to find what I thought I read, but I can't find it, so it's not a big deal.
Okay.
So, and
Well, in all those, that ordinance, I swear, that is the most poorly, formatted, hard to follow, that previous resolution. It's complicated and poorly formatted and just, ugh.
Which is, when
So you
you
can't
did,
find what you wanna
when you
find.
did your resolution, which isn't on SharePoint for everybody, but, it's one you did in 2022.
I just figured.
Or it was basically the same
Yeah.
resolution without all the formatting issues,
Yeah,
so.
because anyway, okay, all right, so we're done. This meeting went longer than I wanted, but I was really hoping our special meeting would take like 20 minutes.
I got the two right.
What?
Got the two right.
Yeah, I did get the two right. So, okay, so motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
Second it.
all in favor? Aye. Okay, Marcy, see ya.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marcy. Oh, Misty's no longer there. Thank you, Misty, even though,
Oh, thank you, Misty, even though she's not here.
yeah, for her part when she was here.
Okay. If you
Thank
would
you,
list the
Darlene.
screen, I can put some stuff, if you would list the screen, there, put some stuff in this cabinet.